everyone, welcome to our Visual Design and Interactive Design Fundamental course by Simplilearn. If you've ever been fascinated by how designers create apps and websites that not just only look good but also easy to use, this course is for you. Whether you're new to design or looking to sharpen your skills, we will dive into everything you need to know to create intuitive, user-friendly designs. You will start by understanding how to create the perfect color palettes that sets the right mood for your designs. We will cover the importance of typography, how choosing the right fonts can make huge impact. Next, we'll also explore the basics of design theory so you understand the principles behind effective visual design. We'll focus on making smart UI/UX design decisions that improve the overall app experience. From collaborative design to app improvement, we will teach you how to work with others to build the best user experience. We'll also dive into UX writing, crafting the right words to guide users, and touch on voice user interfaces, VUI, which are becoming more popular with smart devices. And as we move forward, we will also cover navigation UI design, showing you how to create easy-to-use interfaces. We'll also discuss the importance of iterative design, constantly refining your work, and the values of feedback on improving your design. One of the key skills you will master in this course is wireframing, which will help you map out your designs and see how everything fits together before the final build. We'll also talk about WCAG, which is Web Content Accessibility Guideline, to make sure your designs are accessible to everyone, and how small details like microinteractions can enhance user experience. And by the end of this course, you will have the tools and knowledge to create beautiful, functional, and interactive design that users will love. Let's get started and bring your design skills to the next level. Before we get started, here's a quick quiz question. What is the main purpose of wireframing in design? Your options are to write code, to plan structure of your design, to choose the best colors, or to create final visuals. Let me know your answers in the comment section below.
Today we're going to go over visual design principles. And for Engage and Think, we're going to imagine that you're using Netflix or Spotify. You open the app, and even without consciously thinking about it, you quickly find the play button, browse through movies or playlists, and navigate seamlessly. Everything feels organized, and it's easy to know where to click next. Why do you think it feels so easy and natural to use these apps? Spotify is not a part of the tech. It's not included in the tech powerhouse of it all. Like when you think of what is the acronym now, FANG, spelled out like I think it's like FA. Oh, actually, I think it changed. It's not FANG anymore because Facebook is now Meta. So today's learning objectives are to identify the role of visual design principles such as balance, contrast, emphasis, and movement to create visually appealing and functional user interfaces. Analyze Gestalt, visual principles like proximity, similarity, and closure to enhance user experience by guiding perception and interaction with design layouts. So some foundations of visual design are that it is the practice of using visual elements such as color, typography, imagery, and layout to communicate a message, evoke emotions, and create an aesthetically pleasing experience. Instagram's visual design uses plenty of white space and simple iconography, minimizing distractions. A consistent color scheme with white, black, and Instagram signature pink and orange gradient creates a cohesive and visually engaging interface. And we've seen I'm pretty sure most of us, I know everyone doesn't use Instagram, but most of us use Instagram or some other form of social media where they have I would say they follow essentially similar principles. I can't really say that TikTok does in terms of the aesthetically pleasing experience because TikTok is more so, I would say, for gamification, whereas Instagram doesn't necessarily push that forward. But yeah, I mean, I think the screenshot is a little bit older as far as like the interface, but I think it's pretty consistent as far as just describing in Instagram's like cleanness and sleekness and the essence of like Instagram. I have this like philosophy in a way of what I believe certain social media platforms mean in terms of like what you get out of them. And to me, Instagram is kind of like rides the wave of like where or how you want people to perceive you. um it's kind of like your like photo album in a way, like if you only, or at least that's how some people treat it. um if you only wanted people to see the photos that you selected, not necessarily anything that's just like in your, see what your best picks are versus anything that's in your like photo booth. Whereas I think other platforms like Snapchat or even I think Instagram stories kind of gives you a little bit more insight into like real, a little bit more realness, a little bit more of authenticity. Things may not always be necessarily perfect um, in those particular categories or on those particular like aspects of the platform. So that's just my perception of it. And the next key visual design concepts, the visual design principles help designers organize elements for visual appeal and easy navigation. Essential visual design concepts are balance, contrast, proportion, and movement. Balance refers to the even distribution of visual design across a composition. So in the same way, like things are symmetrical. It guides the viewer's eye to enhance usability, making navigation more comfortable and intuitive. Types of balance are symmetrical balance. Elements are mirrored or evenly distributed on either side of a central axis, creating a sense of formality and order. And then asymmetrical balance is elements are arranged in varying sizes, shapes, or colors to achieve balance without requiring identical symmetry on both sides. And then next we have contrast. It differentiates elements, establishing a clear visual hierarchy, allowing designers to highlight important components and guide users through the design. So some examples of contrast and emphasis. Contrast differentiates elements and establishes visual hierarchy, while emphasis directs focus to important components, ensuring they capture the viewer's attention. Types of contrast. It involves using different colors to visually distinguish design elements, enhancing the visibility and importance of specific components. For example, a bright yellow call to action button placed on a dark blue background effectively draws attention, while in terms of value, it refers to the lightness and darkness variations between colors impacting a design's effectiveness. A black text on a white background, which provides high value contrast and is highly readable, very accessible. When you think about accessibility, that's when you really want to think about contrast essentially. It also includes size, which involves varying the dimensions of design elements to create emphasis and visual hierarchy, guiding guiding the viewer's attention to key components. For example, a large headline, for instance, compared to a smaller body text, immediately captures attention and signals its importance. And that was something that I think I caught in a couple people's work. Just some hierarchy things of ways to like emphasize certain things that, especially when they may be close together or close in size, how to create some visual hierarchy within your design when you have the same font or the same like essentially styling for or a lot of text, especially creating some visual hierarchy and spacing things out. And then next you have heading, typography, where you kind of like build out your heading, your body, your subhead, subtext, and then it involves using various fonts, weights, and styles to establish visual hierarchy and interest in text, creating a dynamic and engaging reading experience. For example, combining a bold open sans font for headings with open sans font for body text creates clear separation between content types. As far as shape, it utilizes different geometric forms to differentiate design elements, creating visual interest and enhancing the user experience. Another example of shape is using rectangular buttons. Circular icons among rectangular buttons creates a clear distinction between the circular icons stand out. And then texture. It employs varying textures to create depth and visual interest, adding layers to the design and making it more engaging. For example, a smooth background paired with a textured foreground creates distinct separation between layers, adding visual intrigue and depth to the design. And then next we have movement. It refers to the path the viewer's eye takes through a composition, directing their attention from one element to another. Effective movement creates a dynamic design and establishes a clear visual hierarchy. Lines and directional cues. Using lines, arrows, or shapes to guide the viewer's eye in a specific direction within a composition. For example, an arrow pointing from a product image to a buy now button directs the viewer's eye towards the call to action. And then implied motion creates is creating a sense of motion through elements that suggest movement. For example, a photo of a runner in the mid stride implies forward motion, en- encouraging the viewer's eye to follow the direction of the runner. Using lines with an image, leading lines, using lines with an image to lead the viewer's eye towards a focal point. For example, a road or a pathway in a landscape photo that leads the viewer's eye to the horizon or a specific point. And then you have sequential placement, where is arranging elements in a sequence that guides the viewer's eye in a logical order. For example, step-by-step instructions in a vertical or horizontal layout where each step leads to the next. And then some contrast in movement is using contrast in color, shape, or size to create focal points that the eye naturally follows. For example, a bright, bold element among softer, muted elements will draw the eye. Excuse me. Will draw the eye and create a path of movement. And then you have repetition, repeating elements in a way that creates a visual rhythm and guides the viewer's eyes. For example, a series of evenly spaced dots or lines leading toward a focal point can create a sense of direction and flow. And then next you have proportion, as it refers to the relative size and scale of different elements in a composition. Proper proportion helps establish a sense of importance and balance, enhancing the overall design flow. It also ensures that each element's size contributes to a cohesive layout, guiding the viewer's eye naturally and creating visual harmony. One of the types of proportion is the standard involves creating size relationships based on familiar ratios that feel balanced to the eye, such as the traditional 2:3 ratio or symmetry, where everything is essentially like 1:1. Um, for example, magazine layouts and iPhone screens dimensions follow standard proportions for aesthetic appeal. Hierarchical, um, in terms of hierarchical, it reflects importance through the size of elements, with larger elements including primary focus and smaller ones as secondary. For example, news sites use large headlines to draw attention with smaller text for less important info. The golden ratio 1:1.618 consists of the mathematical ratio around 1.1 to create an organic balance and aesthetic appeal. The X logo, formerly Twitter, and Parthenon design use the golden ratio for visual appeal. I haven't, I'm not familiar with Parthenon, but they both use the golden ratio for visual appeal. And then as far as scale, scale creates contrast, depth, and emphasizes by exaggerating or minimizing scale differences within a design. For example, Nike ads use a large product images with a smaller text to focus on the product. Modular organizes designs with a grid-based approach, ensuring consistent spacing and elements of alignment of elements throughout the layout. For example, websites like Amazon uses a grid to organize product listings neatly. All right, and for everyone's favorite part, we're gonna get into. I hope everyone does like when I build them out this way because I feel like it's helpful to see things on screen. At least the rhyme and the reason as to like what the selection is as well. Well, this particular question is asking us or going through the scenario of Jenna is designing a landing page for an e-commerce website. She wants the buy now button to stand out visually as the focal point, making it easier for users to identify and engage with it. How can we achieve this without overwhelming users with too many elements? Is it A, grouping the buy now button with product descriptions and images to show their connection? Is it B, using bright red color for the buy now button against a neutral background to draw attention? Or C, creating a formal layout by mirroring elements on both sides of the page? Or D, using arrows to guide the user's eye towards the buy now button? The answer is B, using bright red color for the buy now button against a neutral background. Using a bright red color for the buy now button against a neutral background to draw attention. An explanation is to make the buy now button the focal point. Jenna should leverage contrast and color hierarchy. A bright high contrast color like red, orange, or green against a neutral background naturally draws the eye without cluttering the page. This makes the button easy to identify and encourages users to engage with it. And then an introduction to Gestalt visual design principles. I always, I don't know why for the longest I always say G, like the G first, well, pronounce the G in a different way, but it's Gestalt. So the Gestalt visual design principles. These principles explain how people perceive visual elements as unified wholes, helping users group and interpret information to improve clarity and usability in design. So, for example, when things are broken, the G, closure, emphasis, continuity, symmetry, figure ground, prox proxim proximity, yeah, and then similarity. By applying these principles, designers can create more intuitive and cohesive visual experiences that align with how users naturally perceive the world. While the principles such as balance, contrast, emphasis, and movement create a strong foundation, it's also essential to understand how users perceive and interpret these elements as a whole. Shapes Visual perception and design shapes how users group and make sense of visual elements. It influences overall user experience by guiding attention and interaction. So some Gestalt visual design principles are that here are six of the most common principles in Gestalt principles in visual design is proximity, similarity, continuity, closure, figure and ground, symmetry, and order. The Gestalt principle of proximity. It states that elements placed close together are seen as related, helping users quickly understand the design structure, thereby reducing cognitive load. It arranges related elements close together to signal their connection. It creates visual clusters to help users perceive items as part of a unified whole. It also simplifies information processing by grouping elements, making it easier for users to understand. And an example of proximity is that on Google's Workspace landing page, security and application icons are strategically grouped. By clustering these icons, Google shows that security and applications are key to the user experience, helping users inclusively grasp the platform's offerings. And then, as far as the Gestalt principle of similarity, it states that visual similar elements, shape, color, or texture are perceived as a part of the same group, helping users quickly identify related elements. It uses consistent colors, shapes, and styles to signal related elements. It also creates recognizable patterns to help users quickly identify and interpret information. It also arranges elements in a clear hierarchy to guide users through content and emphasize importance. An example is that on Zoom's homepage, it links for apps access or links for app access like join, host, or sign in are displayed in blue, whereas the customer journey links are in gray, and those are more so how you would find out more insight and more information about Zoom versus choosing to sign up or create an experience or join an experience. Links associated with the customer journey, like product pages and pricing, are displayed in gray, subtly indicating their distinct purposes. And the Gestalt principle of continuity is it states that elements aligned on a line or curve are perceived as related, guiding the user's eye smoothly through the design. Designs intuit the design's intuitive flows that guide users through content seamlessly. It also uses familiar layouts and interactions to enhance user expectations and ease of navigation. It also incorporates continuous lines to direct attention and create a sense of connection between elements. So, for example, Pinterest, one of my favorites. Pinterest's home feed arranges images in columns with of vertical lines of negative space guiding users' eye naturally. The layout encourages vertical scrolling, promoting smooth navigation and making it easy for users to explore more content without feeling overwhelmed. Uh, the salt principle of closure is that it states that the brain fills in gaps to perceive a complete object even when parts of a visual are missing. The visual cues, it as far as closure, it uses visual cues to suggest shapes and forms, helping users understand structure without clutter. It utilizes empty space to enhance clarity, highlight key elements, and improve overall composition. It also focuses on essential elements to create clean designs that are easy to navigate and understand. For example, when a partial image the appear appears above the fold on a seam, your brain instinctively wants to complete it by seeing the entire picture. This natural response encourages you to scroll down the page without even realizing it. And an example, principles of figure and ground is that it describes how users distinguish elements by identifying the focus figure against the background. It defines foreground elements from the background to enhance visibility and comprehension. It uses contrasting colors and sharp edges to improve elements recognition and focus. It also designs elements that can be perceived in multiple ways, allowing users to shift perceptions and engage with the content creativity. So a good example of like figure and ground that I kind of like, I guess also perception more so, was the like image with the old lady and then the young woman, and it asked you what did you see, which one did, or what do you see. Some people saw the old woman immediately, some people saw the young woman immediately. So an example of the Gestalt principle of figure and ground is the FedEx logo. The negative space between the E and the X form an arrow which can be easily overlooked at first glance. This subtle arrow conveys motion and direction effectively conveys the subtle arrow conveys motion and direction, perfectly aligning the with FedEx focus on speed and efficient delivery services. Um, I think this is a really great example of that, especially in logo form, of creating like essentially creating something. I mean, using what you have to create something more, something greater. So, in New York, changed their logo. Everyone hated it at one point, but I think it's also a matter of like they do have to like change things to stay relevant. And I think well, I mean, I'm definitely not the target audience for Cracker Barrel. I think they're the people that are, it still needs to resonate with them or be a place that they would want to go for food. Whereas like, I mean, I guess the pancakes are good, so you would go for that if that's like your thing. But I also don't I don't think it's the biggest like I think that when it comes down to logos being updated and changed and altered, like the public is gonna have a perception about it. And I think we learned that when I think we went over where I think they said, was it Pepsi changed their formula or Coke changed their formula, and then they put it out and spent this big budget of like putting it out onto shelves, and they tested it and people preferred, they tested it in a small group and people preferred the new Coke, whereas in the large group of nationwide or worldwide, people preferred the old Coke. So it's a matter of making people change, but also, yes, giving them something to talk about because that's part of the marketing too. Not everyone's going to like everything, but then the people that do, or at least that made or came across that decision, they have to at least make a decision even then as to like if they're going to stand behind their with their investment, because it's still not a cheap investment, or are they going to move on and like go back, revert back to what was working before. So it's a balance of both. So to continue, we are going to go over the principle of symmetry and order as it taps into a universal human preference for balance and harmony. It also focuses on essential elements to create clear and uncluttered designs that enhance user understanding. In addition to that, it creates balanced compositions to foster harmony and visual appeal, making designs more aesthetically pleasing. It also organizes elements logically to guide users through content and improve navigation. And then aside from that, it designs elements that are easy to perceive and interpret, promoting clarity and reducing cognitive effort. An example is Google's homepage features a symmetrical design and most elements center aligned, including the prominent search bar. The Google search and I'm feeling lucky buttons are positioned side by side, nearly mirroring each other, enhancing the balance and simplicity of the layout. And an application of Gestalt principles in design is that Gestalt principles can be applied in various aspects of design to enhance usability, visual appeal, and user engagement. UI design is that it uses proximity and similarity to group related buttons or links, creating a more intuitive navigation experience. While layout design applies continuity and symmetry to guide the user's eye through the content smoothly and create a sense of balance. Whereas brand design utilizes closure and figure and ground to create memorable and impactful logos that are simple yet recognizable. Case study is Airbnb. Um, Airbnb is a leading marketplace that connects travelers with unique accommodations and continuously enhances its website and app design to ensure a seamless user experience. A key aspect of this optimization is applying Gestalt principles to enhance usability and visual appeal. Some initial design challenge is that cluttered element. That was a quick case study, but I think that Airbnb, of course, is a good example of a marketplace similar to what we discussed before in Amazon, of just that grid-like sequence. Whereas Airbnb does a good job of kind of like showing you um, also like where they could be located and at a high glance like what the pricing may be. So you can kind of navigate through that at one level while seeing a list on the other. And then initial design challenges are cluttered elements. Pages like search results were overwhelming with too many elements, creating visual noise. There was navigation issues where the vast amount of information made navigation overwhelming for users. And then inconsistent visuals. The varying design elements disrupted the visual coherence of the site disrupted the visual coherence of the site. And then you have weak visual hierarchy, which is an important, which are important elements such as calls to action, and then they lack prominence, making navigation difficult for users. A consistent font, while applying Gestalt principles to similarity, is that consistent font, color scheme, and icon styles are used to create a cohesive visual identity indicating similar functions. It allowed users to quickly recognize and understand elements across various pages, thereby improving navigation and usability. As far as applying the principles to proximity, thumbnails displaying a location, distance, dates, and price information are grouped to appear as a single unit. It enabled users to connect images with associated data, creating a streamlined browsing experience that reduces cognitive load and simplifies navigation. An example of applying Gestalt principles to continuity are that cards are arranged horizontally to create a pattern that guides attention through the listings, making it easier for users to scan and compare. It helped Airbnb improve the aesthetics and promote usability, resulting in a smoother browsing experience. You can see them doing that here with the well, now I believe they have like Airbnb experts, which is like a thing where you can like go to people and have them like either cook for you or like have people cook for you, a trainer. There's different, I guess, different ones you can put on Airbnb. So worthwhile looking into and leveraging. And then applying figure and ground is that the zoom feature on the search bar directs users' attention to input their search criteria, emphasizing the function and minimizing distractions. It improved usability by guiding users through their experience and making the search process more intuitive and seamless. And then outcomes and improvements. Applying Gestalt principles led to significant improvements in Airbnb's website design. Increased user engagement, a clear layout, and intuitive navigation encourages longer site exploration the and strengthen the brand connection. And then higher conversion rates, streamlined booking processes, and prominent calls to action lead to more completed reservations. While a positive user feedback, whereas it's uh, where users appreciate the site's ease of use and design, which enhances their experience and encourages referrals. An organized and visually appealing design keeps users engaged, lowers bounce rates, and boosts conversions. In this exercise, you will explore the visual design of Amazon's website through the lens of Gestalt principles. This will help you understand how these principles influence user perception and interaction, fostering a seamless and intuitive experience. So let's just go to Amazon. I'm gonna sign out here just so you guys don't. It's a judgment free zone. Cool. So signing out of Amazon and then just going to Amazon.com. I was looking at an electric bike, um, still considering getting one just to commute to work and slightly, occasionally more, I would say, well, I don't think it's more environmentally friendly, but just to commute to work in I think more of a health conscious way, get some more exercise in versus driving at times, but I guess we'll see. Still thinking about it because my commute was double essentially, but at the same time, some in the morning it would feel like it's double, in the evening it would be about the same, because the traffic in the evening for some reason just doubles once I get off work. So I feel like it's not as intuitive as the mobile, but I think they did a good job of like cleaning things up in a way to make things appeal for their audience base, which is a vast audience. Essentially, you have users young to old um, using Amazon for various reasons. So if someone were to just see orders, they may be confused as to where they could return it, especially if it's not visible. So having that even be, um, of course, not as prominent, but even having that presence definitely helps. Still, even when Amazon utilizes Prime or Amazon Choice, um, it's giving emphasis into the user, like, hey, click here, select this, or we prefer this, so you should too. I'm trying to see if Amazon has like another example. Hold on, let me check that. So yeah, you can say that is a good example. And Varesh, I did also just look into the like example of the logo, and I was wrong with that statement of it not being something that was like utilizing negative space. However, it's a play on figuring ground, because the curved arrow and the smile in the logo, under the logo, is designed so that it doubles as, of course, a smile to show positive emotional association, and then the arrow pointing, of course, from A to Z. So it still is can be categorized as figuring ground, Varesh. So thank you for that example as well earlier. And Olivia, to your point, yes, this can be considered figuring ground as well. Um, One of the other examples that I just saw was even the way, like, let me just click on a product and see, is the way they have their like add to cart and buy now buttons, um as the like it's an example of that, because it still differentiates from the rest of the page. They're like pretty like black and white overall, but calling out key things in red, and those kind of like primary like alert colors of red, yellow, and orange, to kind of communicate that message. Does anyone else have see anything else? I think when um when I at one point I remember like things kind of like combing over part of the screen to showcase like that you're like adding something to your cart, or is it just mobile? Maybe usually on mobile on Amazon. So this is my honest opinion about design agencies, having worked in them, for them. Then if you are in this business, essentially you yourself and your freelance business are your own agency. Oftentimes I find that marketing firms, agencies, they want to have a rhyme or reason as to why they came up with something or why they chose something. And it does make it more marketable when you are able to explain things in your design. However, I feel like certain things are stretched at times as far as like the meaning, the rhyme or reason. And you'll see this even more so with color palettes, as to like why certain colors work together, or why they feel certain colors are harmonious and or contrasting, and color pairings, and why these color pairings work much well together. You'll see the philosophy that people build out. And I'm not saying it's all like irrelevant. So the first thing that I'm linking is ResearchGate. It's just analyzing the role of Gestalt elements and design principles in logo and branding. So it goes a little bit more in depth on what we essentially just went over and what we've been discussing. And then this gray box is giving us an example of applying those principles to design. As far as the Simplilearn platform, you'll also be able to unlock the power. You'll be able to see the unlock the power of Gestalt principles in design, and then go more in depth um, with some readings here. Yeah, I think we can get into lesson two, and just kind of like give us a little bit of a head start on tomorrow, because lesson two is a bit longer. We have like 70 slides to go through. So just wanted to get a little head start on that. We're going into lesson two, visual design, wireframing, prototyping, and microinteractions, and interactive design. Some of the essential elements of visual. Today we're going to focus on essential elements of visual design. And as a quick recap, we went over key visual principles like balance, contrast, emphasis, and movement, uh, which enhance a design's visual appeal and functionality. Gestalt visual principles such as proximity, similarity, and closure guide user perception and interaction, helping to create intuitive and user-friendly designs. Whereas grouping related elements close together helps users quickly identify connections by simplifying navigation and improving the overall user experience. And then, last but not least, we began using using contrast in color, size, and texture, as it highlights essential components, ensuring users easily spot important buttons or calls to action. And then for this lesson's engage and think, we have when you open your favorite app like Spotify, notice how the layout and colors seamlessly guide your experience. As you scroll through your playlist, the text is easy to read, and the visuals help you find your favorite favorite song effortlessly. Now consider walking past a restaurant with a subtle sign that features a unique font or color scheme that grabs your attention. What do you think makes certain design elements stand out in our daily interactions? Is it the colors, fonts, or images that catch our eye? What factors contribute to making these everyday experiences feel so intuitive and seamless? And then for today's learning objectives, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to analyze the impact of colors or on user behavior and apply color schemes to evoke emotions and emphasize key actions in interface design. You'll also be able to evaluate the impact of font styles on readability and brand perception while applying font pairings and hierarchies in a UI layout. Third, you'll be able to identify how strategic use of images, icons, and other visual elements enhance user navigation and experience. And then we'll begin to explore and apply various visual styles to enhance user enhance user interface design, aligning aesthetics with functionality and brand identity. So, essential elements of visual design. So, key elements of visual design as far as color. Using colors in UI design helps users quickly understand each element's purpose and emphasizes key actions for better interaction. So, on the left side, you see like things in full color, where you see it's like a habit tracker, essentially prioritizing, essentially having someone add what habit they're trying to do. What type of habit is it? Is it a to-do list? Is it not to do? A reminder of the time, and then what that would experience would be. It kind of reminds me of like fi version of a mock-up. Essentially, we want to make sure that we're focusing, yes, design in black and white to make sure you're focusing on um, to make sure you're focusing on composition, structure, alignment, um, the text hierarchy. There are many other things you can focus on before you start playing with color, or at least being concerned with color. But if you do have rhyme and reason, especially once you build out your design system to include color, you'll be able to incorporate those colors in a smart and efficient way, like you see on the left side. And then for colors in visual design, color is a vital element in visual design, shaping brand identity and guiding user interactions and influencing emotions. It reinforces brand recognition through consistent use of color, as well as evoking emotions like calmness, which is blue, or urgency in red. It also draws attention to elements like buttons and links. And then color theory is the study of how colors interact, mix, and the visual elements. Visual effects of color combinations. They consist of red, blue, and yellow, the foundational colors that cannot be created by mixing other colors. They consist of green, and then secondary colors consist of, that first one was primary colors. This one is now secondary colors, which they consist of green, orange, and purple, which are formed by mixing two primary colors to enhance the vibrant palette. And then you have tertiary colors. They are created by mixing a primary color with a secondary color, adding depth and complexity to color combinations. And then you have understanding and mixing RGB values. RGB values define the intensity of red, green, and blue in a color, with each component represented by a value between 0, none, and 255, full intensity. So you see the breakdowns here from bright red to bright green to bright blue to magenta to light pink. Combining RGB values in different intensities as it creates new colors. It is for a color wheel, what colors essentially align up in what way and how they all align up in what they create. Um, but essentially, a color wheel is a particular diagram that arranges colors by their chromatic relationships, helping users understand color combinations. It is essential for selecting harmonious color schemes and guiding users in creating visually appealing designs. And then before diving into design, it's important to know that colors come in two forms. Understanding these two primary color modes is crucial for creating effective digital and print designs, and that is RGB versus CMYK. And I recently had to essentially convert something that was created within RGB, but because the client wanted to use Canva, and print it, it's like Canva doesn't necessarily speak to CMYK colors. Well, in my opinion, as a platform. So getting them into CMYK format was definitely essential. Um, RGB is an additive modal. It's used for digital screens, and it combines red, green, and blue light to create colors. And then, for example, computer screens, TVs, and smartphones is where you would essentially utilize and see colors being used. Where CMYK is a subtractive model, it's used for print media, combined cyan, magenta, yellow, and black pigments in their printers. That's why you have like those cartridges with specific colors that when one runs out, your colors kind of look a little weird depending on what you're printing. Color schemes are crucial for setting mood and ensuring visual harmony. Here are some popular types. We have variations of single color, like shades, tints, and tones, as of monochromatic. Excuse me. Um, Monochromatic, it has variations of a single color in different shades, tints, and tones, and it provides a cohesive and soothing look. Whereas analogs are colors next to each other on the color wheel, and then creates a harmonious and visually pleasing effect. And then you may have complementary colors, which are opposite each other on the color wheel, like red and green, purple and yellow, which it creates high contrast and striking visual effects. Color schemes are crucial for setting the mood and ensuring visual harmony. Here are some popular types. Tri, tri, triadic, triadic are three colors evenly spaced around the color wheel, provides a balanced yet vibrant color palette. And a split complementary is a base color or a base and two colors adjacent to its complementary color on the color wheel, as it provides high contrast while maintaining harmony for a vibrant yet balanced visual effect. And then you have the rectangular tetradic. Um, there are four colors form a rectangle with two complementary color pairs on the color wheel. It creates a harmonious yet contrasting effect, like Google. Mhm. And then you have introduction to color psychology. Color psychology studies how colors impact our emotions, perceptions, and behaviors, influencing our daily decisions and feelings. They evoke emotions such as calmness from green and energy from red, but their meanings can vary across different cultures. And then color psychology and branding. Behaviors influencing our daily decisions and feelings. They evoke emotions such as calmness from green and energy from red, but their meanings can vary across different cultures. Picking that to the psychology of branding, in psychology and branding, colors play a crucial role in shaping brand identity and communicating the brand message to the audience. So you see in this red box on the left side, you'll see for established brands, colors are in, intrinsically linked to their identity. For example, Coca-Cola's red signifies excitement. And then on the right side, you'll see that for brands, colors help position the brand and connect. For new brands, colors help position the brand and connect with the target audience. For example, Spotify's green conveys freshness and energy. And then 60-30-10 rule in color theory is that it's a widely used principle in color theory that helps designers create visually balanced and appealing color schemes. For primary colors, it's 60%. It sets the overall tone and mood. And for example, your background color. And then you have your secondary colors, which is 30% of your composition. It complements the primary color and adds visual interest. For example, secondary background. And I'll just give you a better example. You have like your display copy, right? Your display header. Say if your page was like just your background was white and whatnot, and say Apple was rebranding and wanted to like use color, not Apple really, but say there was a company that like just had like a really clean aesthetic like Apple, and they just wanted to use color in their typography. You may set the tone with the display header being like really large and in charge and like a really strong bold color, whereas your like subhead under that or your little caption under that, I think for the most part you would essentially use a secondary color, something that stands out but not too much. And then for your accent color, you have it makes up 10% of your composition, but it's used sparingly to highlight important elements that and create focal points, for example, buttons and links. And that's exactly the way that I design myself. On my links, I kind of like reserve a color for them just so I can speak to them specifically without necessarily muddying the waters elsewhere with the use of that color in other places. Like, for example, if I'm creating if I'm creating something and I'm like, okay, well, I want to make sure, like, if I'm using purple, yellow, and what's another color that gets in that family? Like orange, right? And I've already identified like different purples as my primary color, different oranges as my secondary. I'm gonna find what yellows I can include for, like, I know yellow is probably not the best example of this, but they're using yellow and it's very visible. So it is possible to still use yellow, but the point I'm trying to make is that I separate that color so that I can utilize it for my links or my call outs. For example, if I'm saying like view more or show more, see more, if I want something to be expanded, mainly interactive points, buttons, I save that for that tertiary color. And then an example is the Cosmo app or platform. It's a e-commerce website. Its primary color is white as it dominates the background, keeping it clean, like keeping the layout clean and spacious. And then the secondary is the blue, where it highlights the logo and add to cart button, providing emphasis on completing complement complementing the white background, whereas T black is used sparingly for text and icons, ensuring strong contrast and readability without overwhelming the viewer. So like this is a good example of that. I think they just flip their like button indications or things that are linked to be secondary because they utilize it more. So it really does depend on the platform you're working with and then color scheme generator. It is a valuable tool for designers and developers, helping them quickly create cohesive and visually appealing color palettes for their projects. It allows designers to find the ideal palette that fits project goals, brand identity, and or target audience, ensuring visual balance and consistency. And then here are a few tools to help create professional color palettes in your design for your design needs. I haven't utilized this one yet, but you have Adobe Color, which creates custom color schemes using rules. You have ColorMind, which generates AI-based color palettes deriving from schemes in images. And then you have UX Pilot, which is a Figma plugin that generates cohesive color palettes for seamless design. And then you have colors, which is one I use a lot. It generates color schemes in one click, and then Color Hunt, which it provides curated color palettes. So I don't think we need 15 minutes for this, but let's just go for it. And then we'll close out. Generating custom color schemes using AI-powered UX Pilot AI, which is a plugin in Figma. Generate a custom color scheme using the AI-powered UX Pilot AI plugin in Figma and apply the colors across a design project using variables and understand the significance of each color in terms of usability and user experience. I don't know why I typed in UX Pilot, but It seems like it's supposed to be already in Figma, but if it's not, I'll come back over here. Let's create a new design really quick. I'm gonna navigate to plugins. And I guess they have different ones, but this one is spelling it all together. So try that. Like putting UX and Pilot. Let's come up with a color palette. Come up with a color palette for a dog washing company. Dog washing mobile company servicing. Hey, Joanna, what city do you live in? Servicing Chicago. Serving Chicago. They. What are some elements, some adjectives you can use to describe Chicago? Oh, maybe her thing is doing that thing where I don't know if it's stuck again. Okay. So here's my prompt. I'm gonna copy this because we may have to use it for some other things too. Just where we are so far, we can always expand on that and elaborate a bit differently. Didn't really give us too much, but
Yeah, I thought the prompt would be give us like maybe coloration of like maybe 2 or 3 colors in one. And it just seems is that would be a grouping?
yeah, it gave us like I wouldn't necessarily say grouping. It just kind of gave us the way text would look on that color, in terms of like normal text, large text, white and dark. But and that's to see accessibility. But this is the color palette that it gave us, these 5 colors. Let's see what happened if it gave us. Okay, how do you feel about these 3 versus the 3, the 5, and then let's just do 4 to be humorous. All right. Clearly they want us to pick red. I mean, they gave you some variations. They're just not telling you how to treat them. Yours only gave you 1. I mean, I feel like I'm not the fond. I haven't used this generator before. So I can't really say that I'm fond of it, but I feel like we can get a better one. Of course, you don't necessarily prompt colors. At least I don't believe that exists on that platform or that capability. But I think it's very like insightful as to like how it can be utilized, especially or at least how you can lay out color. For even like your stakeholder review of showing like things are accessible if you're using like different button styles or text variations, just showing and seeing what is accessible and what may not be. But I think this tool is okay. I don't think that it's like great. If you were asking, if I was like trying to like pick the actual colors, I would probably like, if I was just doing like a dog washing station, I would just try and pick like colors that represent cleanness, but I also would like want some pops in there. So I'll probably either go in this vibe um or maybe something like this even to like showcase some like contrast, like deep contrast, but then also some like harmony. I don't know. Just trying to like play with things as well and seeing like what works together, but also s- trying to represent the brand in a niche in the space that it's in, but also have it stand out. At least the way it was like laid out from like red, yellow, green, purple, and I think these blues. So, or one of these blues. I don't like these. I would definitely suggest let's just go back in the let's see what color mine does if we can use that platform because it also is AI. Let's try that then. Giving it like I say I guess a more simple prompt. I'm just using the prompts that it has up top too. So I guess this is their fintech app for Gen Z users. Then there's an e-commerce app for savvy shoppers. I reverted kind of back to a brighter version of this, seems like. And then we have the meditation app, pastel colors for innovative product, and then edgy colors for web complementing. I don't know. I'm honestly still not the biggest fan of it, but I'm glad it has some variation for some of you. Hopefully that continues if you still decide to use it.
If you click on the contrast information, it seems to give you a little bit different if you uncheck it.
I think that mainly just takes away the information that you see underneath, like here, but it does still give you a different color. It's slightly different, but I don't feel like they are like giving like true unique color palettes that work together. It's just like however many random colors. I don't know. Whereas like a palette is even similar to the color mine. Like this feels more like a palette for like a maybe a doctor's office or some sort of like wellness. Tried any other enhancements with it or pro, but it's free and I have quite a few colors that I have in here. It's a lot of the same where I was just kind of like experimenting with things, but I've used it a lot. And essentially, like you start a generator, you don't prompt it necessarily, but you hit spacebar and it goes through random like color palettes. It keeps shifting, and then you can tell it to stop. Selecting a color, locking certain colors in that you like, and then scrambling more to find variations of other placements that you don't like. So, for example, if you wanted, let's just narrow this down for the sake of time. If you wanted a three colors, right? And say I'm like, oh, I really like this light green. So I'll lock my light green in, but say I don't want it to feel so light and airy like it does with these other two colors. So I'll lock in the light green, and then I'll keep hitting spacebar for what other colors I do like. And I'm like, oh, okay, I like this black and like cobalt kind of Crayola blue. And then I'll keep those and then pull these hex codes into my design. You can also export the color palette in various ways, in code, SVG, PDF, images, etc. So that way you have it, and then you can also adjust the like temperatures, the hues of the palette, saturation of it, of the colors that you've actually selected already, brightness, temperature, etc. So you can get some more out of what you already like. This lesson goes over visual design, wireframing, prototyping, microinteractions, and interactive design. It's also essential. Today we're going to be focusing on essential elements of visual design. And as a quick recap of some of the things that we went over yesterday, we went over key visual principles like balance, contrast, emphasis, and movement as they enhance a design's visual appeal and functionality. We also went over the Gestalt visual principles such as proximity, similarity, and closure as they guide user perception and interaction, helping to create intuitive and user-friendly designs. We also went over grouping related elements close together helps users quickly identify connections, simplifying navigation, and improving the overall user experience. And then last but not least, we learned that using contrast and color, size, or texture highlights essential components, ensuring users easily spot important buttons or calls to action. So we went through the one of the key elements of visual design, which was color yesterday. And I'm just going to fast forward us to typography because that's where we left off. All right. So key elements of visual design, typography. So for today's discussion, why do these logos look different? Look at these 3 logos and why do you think they all use different fonts? And what message do you think each font style is trying to convey? We have Nike, Coca-Cola, and the New York Times. So typography is the art and technique of arranging type to make written language legible, readable, and visually appealing. Effective typography enhances communication and ensures the message is conveyed clearly and efficiently. So understanding typeface versus font. Typeface is the overall design of the letters, numbers, and symbols that make up a particular set of characters, including shapes, curves, and unique characteristics that give a typeface its distinct visual identity. As far as a font is described as a specific variation of a typeface that includes styles such as bold, italic, or regular and size. It represents how a typeface is displayed in practice. So, for example, and honestly, I use Helvetica a lot. I know like it's very like simple and basic, but I also feel like it's very clean and lends itself to a certain structure that is easily digestible. Just personal preference there. But Helvetica, for example, is a family of related fonts where a font refers to a specific style or weight within that typeface, as illustrated by different variations of Helvetica shown here. So Helvetica is a very robust typeface. It has multiple weights um, that you can leverage, like regular oblique, light oblique, bold, and bold oblique. And then there's also variations of Helvetica, like Helvetica New, that essentially give you the same variations of fonts, but I want to say I've also seen some expanded ones as well. And then as far as typeface categories, a typeface is more than just a set of letters. It's a visual voice of your design shaping how your message is perceived. For example, a serif typeface, the ones with the little accents on small lines associated. A serif typeface is with small lines or strokes at the end of letters. The perception is traditional, formal, and authoritative. It's great for print and long form content where readability is key. For example, Times New Roman, and that's a pretty standard systemized typeface. And as far as sans serif typefaces without the extra strokes, the perception is clean, modern, and minimalistic. It's ideal for digital screens and modern, sleek designs, for example, Arial and Helvetica. Key principles of typography are that there are a few key principles of typography are to ensure clarity, readability, and visual appeal. Apologies, my monitor keeps like cutting out weirdly. As far as consistency, we want to stick to uniform typefaces, sizes, and styles throughout your design to create a cohesive look. So, for example, if you're creating a the body copy or input fields and drop downs, for example, you want to make sure you're using not only the same typeface, but things that are the same size and consistent weights for the levels of your designs. For example, if you're designing, all your headers should stand out a little bit more than your body copy in your like input fields. In terms of hierarchy, this is goes into hierarchy as well. Is to use contrast in type, size, weight, and color to create a hierarchy and focus attention on key elements. And then we get into alignment, which is to ensure proper alignment is left, right, centered, or justified to keep text organized and structured. And then next we have proximity, which is to group related items together to create a visual connection between them. And then white space. Use white space effectively to prevent the design from feeling cluttered and to improve readability. Some best practices to enhance your design and improve communication are to choose appropriate typefaces by selecting typefaces that align with the tone and purpose of your design. Limit typefaces no more than 2 to 3 typefaces in a design to avoid visual clutter and confusion. For example, you can use a display font. You can use a different font for your headers and then another font for your body copy if you really, really wanted to, and if you absolutely feel like you need to. Or you can just use a header font and a body copy. I would say most platforms and systems use, where they may, depending on the brand, they may incorporate a display font, especially in like hero images or header sections to like convey like tone or movement. Next, you want to limit the typefaces to no more than 2 or 3 to avoid. Then establish hierarchy by establishing a clear typographic hierarchy to guide readers by using different font sizes, weights, and styles to distinguish headings and emphasize key points. Next, you want to optimize for readability to ensure text is large enough for comfortable reading and on digital screens, and avoid long line lengths to prevent eye strain. And then last but not least, consider accessibility. Ensure strong contrast between text and background to avoid overly decorative typefaces that can compromise readability. Yes. And then you also don't want to avoid, especially when it comes down to digital screens, using typefaces that are too thin, because they can be hard to read, especially for certain user groups. For example, if you're designing something that could potentially be read by elders, you may want to be especially mindful of the sizing and weights that you use. So, online tools to elevate your designs. Here are a few tools to help create professional typography that suits your design needs, like Google Fonts. It's free and easy to use font library. Font Pair simplifies finding complementary font pairs. And then What the Font identifies fonts from images or websites quickly. And then Adobe Font, it offers premium high quality fonts or for creative professionals. And then you have FontJoy, which helps generate and explore font pairings. In today's demo, we're gonna find the perfect font pairing using FontJoy. So feel free to like open that up on in your browser. The objective is to generate a suitable primary brand font using FontJoy to create the perfect font pairing for your design projects. We're going to experiment with various styles and weights to ensure that you've chosen fonts that resonate with your audience and elevate your design work. So without further ado, let me pull it up. And so this is FontJoy. Font pairings made simple, generated font combinations with deep learning. So right now, the fonts that it's kind of operating, I think, similarly to Colors, the site that we visited yesterday. And I'll just pull that up for a quick reference. We visited this site yesterday and went through the well, actually, I don't think we did. I think we went through a different one. But I primarily use Colors. And this is kind of like the generation of like different colors on their site. But it seems to operate similarly, where you can lock and unlock font pairings. And then while it's not as user friendly, where Colors, you can just like hit your spacebar and keep generating different color palettes. This one, you have to like just press this button, and then you can determine how similar the more contrast between the combinations. And let's just look at the maximum extremes of things.
Nisha, you're still on the coolers right now.
Sorry. Thank you.
You're back.
Okay, great. So I was just like toggling through the font pairings and just showing that it's not, you can't use your spacebar to like go through the font pairings or generate new ones, but you can just keep tapping generate and it'll keep giving you different pairings that work well together in terms of a display, a subhead, and then even body copy. So this one is using Cario, Libre Baskerville, and then Libre Franklin, which is in a way using two typefaces still, but then they're using, two typefaces, but using, in one of the typefaces, they're using two different fonts. To look at the maximum extremes of this, let's generate something that has high contrast. So these fonts they're saying have high contrast. They're using three different typefaces to communicate this: Bree Serif, Tithulium, Web, and then Rubik. And we have some different ones here: Quantico, Lustria, and Catamaran. And they seem to work well together. For the most part, I have my, subtle differences. I think this one works pretty well together, depending on like if you were writing, for example, like a story or and maybe it had some mystery, if you will, as an aspect, or was the tone of it all. And then something that is very similar, we have Lecton, Roboto Mono, and Malengo, and a few others that have a bit closer of a relationship. And I can tell that these particular typefaces, they both I think they all seem a bit wide, as to why they are deemed similar, in terms of like the width of certain characters. So feel free to play around with this tool and discover your favorite fonts, discover groupings and pairings that you feel work well together. And I think what FontJoy does well is that they show you it in dark mode to kind of like show you the contrast between the the typefaces and the background. So if you were adapting something on a color background, you kind of have an even playing field here to like see it work in black and white, essentially, or gray, shades of gray, if you will.
Can
Are
you
there any?
can you download these fonts from here somehow? Because like since they're so different, I just wonder, just curious.
No, it doesn't seem like you can. However, let me double check that. Yeah, it doesn't seem like you can download them. Um, it's just kind of giving you the pairings. When you click and you download something from like Google Fonts, for example, or download a font, add it to your typography library, and you're a part of your like computer or laptop, you're able to still use it on the desktop version of Figma. Feel free to, like I said, download and find your favorite fonts there. All right. So getting back into the lesson, some key elements of visual design are images and icons. They quickly convey messages to enhance visual appeal and aid navigation, making designs more engaging and intuitive. For example, images convey information that evoke emotions, enhance visual appeal with purposeful, or you can enhance visual appeal with purposeful images. They also ensure clarity and professionalism with high resolution, and then well composed visuals. And then as far as icons, icons are clearly aid navigation, represent actions, or enhance understanding. They're simple, recognizable, and easy to understand quickly. They have a consistent style, size, and alignment throughout the design. And I do want to stress that, making sure that your icons have, similar to your typography, making sure they have consistent style, size, and alignment is very important. You don't want to necessarily use something that looks drastically different throughout your design, unless, I don't know, you're making something that is truly a personal project that it has to like completely make sense. And I can't really think of a way that it would. However, making sure that your styling of your icons is very closely related. It does get a little tricky, especially when you're trying to find unique icons or truly different icons that express specific points. And sometimes that may call for you to create things yourself and have it kind of like line up to the weight of the line or stroke that the icon is using. But when some icons are even more elaborate and illustrative, so just making sure that they're consistent in your design. Some key elements of visual design lines. They serve various functions, such as separating content, creating emphasis, and guiding the viewer's attention, enhancing a design structure and flow. Straight lines create order, precision, and structure, often aligning elements for a clean, organized look. We have horizontal lines. They suggest stability and tranquility, creating a calm feel while dividing sections or adding balance. For example, if you look at certain, I've seen like certain spa websites that use very thin horizontal lines to separate content and kind of give that that feeling of spatial and elegance. Then you have vertical lines, which imply strength and professionalism, drawing the eye upward and creating a sense of height and importance. And then diagonal lines convey movement and energy, introducing dynamicism and actively guiding the viewer's eye through the design. And then you have curved lines, which bring softness and natural flow to the design, evoking comfort and relaxation, often linked to organic forms and can be seen as playful as well. And then you have wavy lines, which suggest rhythm and fluidity. They adding playfulness and dynamic movement to make the design feel lively and engaging. And then next, we're going to get into shapes. They create visual and they create visual interest, define spaces, and symbolize ideas, playing a crucial role in the design's aesthetic and evoking emotions through their forms. You have geometric shapes and organic shapes. To get into geometric shapes, they are described as regular, precise shapes provide structure and clarity in design, with their predictability conveying professionalism and organization. Squares and rectangles represent stability, relatability, and order, whereas circles and ovals symbolize infinity, unity, and protection. And then, last but not least, triangles imply direction, balance, and dynamicism. Organic shapes are described as irregular natural shapes that bring fluidity and ease to design, evoking comfort and creativity to create an inviting space. We have freeform shapes, which are natural fluid shapes that are less predictable than geometric forms, conveying spontaneity and artistic expression. We have abstract shapes, which are representational but not realistic. They're often used for artistic expression. So here we have texture, which refers to the perceived surface quality of a design element's structure. Excuse me, of a design element. Texture creates depth, dimension, and tactile experience, even in digital formats. They add visual interest and can evoke specific emotions or reactions, enhancing the realism and depth of design. Here are a few different types. Here are a few different types of textures used in visual design. First, we have tactile, which is physical. It provides the actual feel of a surface when touched. For example, it's roughness of a sandpaper and smoothness of a glass. Then And visual implied is described as it gives the illusion of physical texture through design elements. For example, a photo of a tree bark or a pattern that mimics fabric. And last but not least, you have abstract, which conveys texture without physical interaction. It's engaging the user's imagination and perception. For example, the soft flowing clouds in a painting or layered brushstrokes in abstract art. Next, we have space, which refers to the empty areas around and between design elements, enhancing aesthetics, readability, and overall user experience. It plays a crucial role in visual design for organizing content, establishing hierarchy, enhancing readability, and making designs more engaging and accessible. So we have types of space. Here are two types of spaces essential for achieving balance and harmony in visual design. First, you have microspace and macros. Then next, you have macrospace. To get into microspace, it's referred to as small spaces between lines of text, letters, and other small design elements. It enhances readability and overall flow of text. And some examples are letter spacing is kerning and line spacing. Line spacing is leading, but and we didn't include that here. And then also have padding. Then you have to get into macro space, which is of course more space. It involves larger spaces between major elements of design. It creates a balanced layout and allows each component to breathe. For example, some examples of macro space are margins, gutters, and then the space in between sections or modules. And now we're going to get into the introduction to visuals and UI for brand identity. Some visuals serve as essential tools for conveying a brand's identity and narrative within UI. Design elements that shape a brand's identity in UI design are logo, color palette, typography, imagery style. And these things you want to make sure that you're keeping consistent with each particular category, of course, throughout your design, that they match up well together and they speak together nicely. For example, a tech startup might use a clean, modern typography, a blue color scheme to communicate trust and innovation. How visuals convey brand identity and storytelling in UI. Visuals enhance brand identity and storytelling in UI by first by visual storytelling is described. Visual storytelling in UI is described by using design elements to convey a brand's journey and message that fosters emotional connections with users and creates memorable experiences. An example of that is a fitness app that might use images of users achieving fitness goals to tell the brand story of empowerment and progress. Whereas the emotional connection through color and imagery is described as selecting colors and images carefully. Brands can evoke specific feelings, fostering a deeper emotional connection with their audience. A good example of this is a wellness app using calming pastel colors and scenery landscape images, which encourages users to feel relaxed and cared for. And then how visuals convey brand identity and storytelling in UI. To continue that, we have consistency across platforms. This is described as employing consistent color schemes, typography, and iconography across various platforms as it maintains a unified experience. And this is something you want to make sure you're definitely keeping forefront. An example of that is Apple's clean, minimalist design is consistent across its website, app, and product interfaces. It's using a recognizable, it created and it uses a recognizable brand experience. Next, we have using custom illustrations to tell the brand story. Applying custom illustrations reflects a brand's personality and helps visually differentiate the company from competitors. For example, MailChimp uses playful and quirky illustrations throughout its platform, reflecting its friendly, accessible brand personality. How to choose the right visual style for your brand. Here are key factors to consider when choosing the right visual style for your brand. You want to focus on brand identity. Choose a style that reflects your brand's values. Your target audience, cater to your users' preferences. For example, if they're corporate versus creative, making sure you're designing for your niche, essentially. Um, and then user experience, ensuring the style enhances usability and avoids slowing performance. And then, last but not least, consistency, whereas it uses the style use style consistently across the platforms for a unified experience. Some visual styles in UI design. Now we're going to go over the overview of that. An introduction to visual styles in UI design are selecting the right. Start by selecting the right visual style, as it is essential for an effective user interface. It also affects both aesthetics and user perception of the brand. First example of that is you have flat design. And to zoom in a little bit here, I don't know if you can see that a little bit larger now. Flat design is characterized by a minimalistic approach and omits 3D effects like shadows and gradients, and truly the graphics and elements that you're using are truly flat to the page. 3D design adds depth and realism to user interfaces through shadows, gradients, and textures, while abstract design relies on creative and non representational elements like geometric shapes and fluid patterns. And then you have hand drawn illustrations, which brings a personal human touch to the user interface. The right visual style shapes user perceptions, influences interactions, and reinforces a brand's identity. For example, as far as the design style of flat design, I'll just read a couple of these. It's minimalistic 2D visuals with no gradient and shadows. Um, some pros of that is that it's clean, fast loading, and easy to scale. A con is that it can feel overly simple and lacks depth. And then for an example of that is that tech companies and mobile apps, for examples like Google and Microsoft, they all use like flat design. Um, Another one that is, I would say, pretty popular is 3D design. It allows the use of depth, shadows, and gradients for a realistic dynamic look. It's visually engaging and immersive, and it's heavier on performance, which can overwhelm users. Meaning meaning that some people it's a lot sometimes to digest depending on the elements that you're using and how you're using them, so making sure that you're using um, your design styles for your audience as well. um, but for example, gaming platforms and e-commerce, example Apple product pages, they definitely leverage 3D design to convey in a clean way what they, or at least speak to their target audience. Of course, Apple is selling products, so they want to show how robust their products are and essentially make you feel like you have that product already. Whereas gaming platforms, they use 3D design a lot to show that you're a part of this experience, or to give life and more movement to the characters, more dimension to the characters. Let's see. Next we have a case study on Dropbox, which illustrates is it goes over how illustrations transform the user experience. So a case study on Dropbox, Dropbox's use of illustrations. Dropbox is a leading cloud storage company, and it redesigned its platform to emphasize illustrations that enhance approachability and user friendliness. Some challenges were the competitive market. Dropbox aimed to differentiate itself in a saturated cloud storage market, complex communication where the service needed a simpler, more relatable presentation, and then the brand identity issues were that the previous design lacked a distinct brand identity. And then another challenge was user engagement, where users found the earlier design functional but uninspiring. The roles of illustrations. The redesign introduced a playful hand-drawn illustration style throughout the interface, which was used to simplify complex concepts, clarifying Dropbox's features like file sharing and collaboration, making complex workflows easier to understand. And then it set a tone. It allowed a reflection of Dropbox's focus on creativity, collaboration, and openness to align the visual identity with its mission of effortless organization. It also um, it also was used to enhance user engagement, which guides users through onboarding, provide helpful tips, and celebrates achievements by making the experience more interactive and engaging. The illustrations enhance the user experience, making the application more approachable and helping users better understand its features. It began to transform functionality into creativity, establish brand recognition, and then enhance user experience. And then for today's quick check, give me 2 seconds. So I didn't set that up. All right, so I'll just read it because it's going to take me a little longer than I didn't necessarily. I know we didn't have much to do on screen today, so all good. But today's quick check is Maria is a UI UX designer. She's creating the landing page for FitPro, a fitness app focused on empowering users and promoting personal achievement. Her goal is to design a page that reflects the app's energetic and motivational brand identity. Which design choice should Maria make to best convey FitPro's values? Is it A, minimalistic design in cool tones like blue and gray for calmness? B, use bold typography, bright colors, and images of users reaching their goals to inspire motivation? Or is it C, to incorporate soft pastels and nature imagery for a relaxing atmosphere? Or D, to opt for abstract geometric designs with neutral tones to highlight professionalism? Yeah, that one is definitely B. I think we all are on the money there. And then, let's see. As far as UI design formula, let's just get into that. UX and UI designers often rely on widely recognized psychological principles known as UX laws to guide their design choices. First, we have Miller's Law. Next, we have Hicks' Law. And then we have Jacob's Law and then Fitt's Law. And these laws are based on how users naturally perceive, process, and interact with information. Actually, yeah. First that we're going to explain is Hicks' Law. It states that users make decisions based on the number of choices offered to them and the complexity of those choices, like time plus choices plus a person who makes the decision equals the time to make the decision and the number of choices increases. Designers can simplify decision making by reducing visual options and breaking complex tasks into smaller and manageable steps. For example, an example of Hicks' law is Google minimizes decision making when entering keywords by eliminating distracting content, and additional choices. An example of Fitts' law is that it states that the time to acquire a target is a function of the distance to and size of the target. Where the pointer is located, for example, near and big, and then far and small, faster and slower are some examples. Designers can create buttons and interactive elements that are large and easily accessible to enhance usability. An example of Fitts' law is Airbnb effectively uses the edges of the homepage screen. Objects near the edges are quicker to select than those near the center, improving accessibility. And then you have Jacob's law. It states that users spend most of their time on other websites, so they expect your site to work like all the other sites they already know. Designers should adhere to established patterns and conventions to align with user expectations and improve usability. Next, an example of Jacob's law is YouTube. YouTube launched a new version in 2017 after years of essentially the same design. It allowed desktop users to ease into the new material design UI without having to commit. Users could preview the new design before and become familiar with it, provide feedback, and revert to the old version if desired. And then you have Miller's Law, as it states that an average person can only keep 7 plus or minus 2 items in their working memory. So, for example, what you see versus what you remember. You can see more than you remember. Designers should limit the items and menus lists and UI components to 5 to 9 to enhance usability and user experience. An example of that is Samsung's online store that uses chunking techniques like negative space and background color to help viewers differentiate sections. The page shows more than 7 options. Viewers can easily memorize a product due to the visual separation. All right, and then we have a guided practice today. I'm actually going to take a We're going to take a little break before we get into today's guided practice. Just to like give us a minute to use the restroom, stretch our limbs and stuff before we get into a 30-minute exercise. Let's take a break. 11:54. Let's just round up. Let's just come back at 11:15. And then we'll resume the rest of this lesson. I do realize we're missing some folks today, so I hope everyone is staying in good health and spirits. It's okay if you join late. All good there. I realize we're actually almost done with our second lesson for the week, so I may need to prepare some more just to keep us going. Today's guided practice is that we will, in this exercise, we will be applying typography and color to create a clear visual hierarchy in a UI design. And this will help you understand how strategic use of font sizes, weights, and color contrast color contrast enhances user attention, guiding them through the interface for a more intuitive and engaging experience. So let's just hop back over to our Figma. Oh. I guess we can start in the playground that I was in yesterday. I'm just going to delete all these colors though. All right. I just shared a link to my Figma screen, and sorry, let me just drag out another tab so I can see the practice as well as
Anisha, I clicked on the link, but it says that I need to request, to be let in. Oh, never mind.
let me change that link. Anyone with link?
Thank you.
No worries. And I gave you edit access, Joanna. So Olivia, you're in here too. See a couple people are in here as well. Cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna search for a template to like get us started. Oh, actually, there is so we're in here. We're basically what I wanted to do today is basically just take a font pairing that I'm gonna verbalize, and I'll just call on people to like put the actual pairing in. So we're gonna create a welcome screen to an app. That app is going to be a wellness app. So I'm thinking something really sleek, elegant, modern, but also clean. So let's have um, let's have. Do you want to find us an image that embodies wellness? A clean, simple image that embodies wellness for us to use on our homepage.
Okay, will do.
Awesome, awesome. And then let's give us a button and pathways in. I'll just color this black until we get that detail down. Switching my placements of my gradient here. So we got some blue in the bottom. Let's see if we can use this. We may be able to keep the black button, but I want to see if we can use one of these other. Ooh, that may be nice. Yeah, I think that may be nice. With this color. Maybe not that big, but. And I also, for some reason, I want to take it off of bold and like lighten it. We may have some space, just a little bit, to nudge our character up, our subject rather. All right, do you guys think that we should, I have no like bias here, but do you guys feel like we should left align or center align our text? I kind of like it the way it is, but I just wanted to know. And I'm just adding a little shadow underneath, trying to see how that may help visibility a little bit more too. And then I'm just gonna take this shape and make it our like logo symbol for now. I feel like we have to get a little bolder to match our family over here. Yeah, I think the all blue text was cool. All right, guys. And then I just stole their like logo for the most part. The hamburger I made, yeah, I guess like you can say I stole the button style too, but they didn't add any like depth or dimension to it. Whereas like we could, if we really wanted to, there's definitely room to, especially like with the way the logo looks. I think it could look cool. Let's see. Just playing around here. I did this one gradient this one time that was like, it came from the color. So that was like, I don't know, that kind of gave Windows 99 to me. When it's like, when there's a gradient coming from the bottom for some reason, it just makes me feel that way. But this one time I did like a gradient from the, you're saying from the top? Let's see. I think the green gradient looked the best. Yeah, two slightly different signups, but I will say that the blue is definitely more accessible. Where it's like you can still save the green, like we still have it in the hamburger. We have it primarily in the logo. So it still has a presence and it can still also be like filtered in to the app experience itself. But I
Yeah.
think this is definitely a great starting point. Yeah, we're gonna remove that. I
Okay,
would
yeah.
definitely remove that if we have the button. So let's just do one with the button and one without. Like one with the already have an account login. The already have an account login kind of just creates another screen or another step. You can essentially telling the user to log in from the screen. Would you guys like to leave the button filled or not? So just to get back into the today's lesson, I'm gonna switch my pardon me, my zoom out, but I'm gonna put my lesson tab back in and swap it out. So that was fun. That was a great guided practice off the fly. But some key takeaways were color significantly influences user emotion and interactions, enhancing usability, directing attention, and invoking desired responses, making it a vital tool in UI design. A well-chosen typography enhances legibility and visual appeal while conveying a brand's personality, improving readability, and strengthening the user-brand connection. Strategic use of images, icons, and graphics simplifies navigation. It guides users through tasks and reduces cognitive load and enhances the overall user experience while maintaining consistent design choices across various platforms, including colors, typography, and layout. It also ensures a cohesive user experience, builds trust, and enhances brand recognition. And last but not least, we have some resources. Um, Here are a few additional materials to help you enhance your knowledge available in the reference materials section of the LMS. Understanding the emotional tone of illustrations in UI design. I think that's very important. Ensuring consistency with the brand's visual language in UI design. Um, Functional graphics versus decorative illustrations. Learning the difference between the two is definitely important there. And then steps to integrate graphics and illustrations. And here are a few readings. I'll paste the links in the chat, but they should still also be available to you in the platform as well, or at least accessible to you there as well. Trying to make sure I'm getting them all. So ResearchGate, and then the Tubix Studio. Oh, the Medium. I'm very familiar with the Medium. And some readings, going into the different laws of UI, UX, some color theory, and why color matters, and the role of branding in UI design. So today we're going to be going over UX writing and its significance. So just a quick show of hands, how many people actually like to write in terms of like stories, I don't know, book reports, poetry in any form? No writers in the group? Okay. Oftentimes we partner with a UX writer, but sometimes we do have to get our hands dirty and kind of get in there ourselves and simulate text until it may be refined by a larger team or a marketing department, depending on the project. So, without further ado, we're going to get into that. We went over colors impact emotions and guide user actions, making them crucial in UI design. We also learned that good typography improves readability, expresses the brand's personality, and connects users with the brand. In addition to effective use of images, icons, and graphics, is it helps users navigate easily and reduces mental effort. We also learned that consistent design choices, including colors, fonts, and layout, create a cohesive experience, building trust and reinforcing brand identity. We even built sign up screen. And to get into today's engage and think, we're truly engaging with this one. But it starts off with, did you know bad UX can confuse users and lead to frustration, causing them to abandon tasks? So step one was to open the link. And for those joining virtually, not live, virtually in the recording, the website is user-interface.com. So our first task is to open that website and fill out the form as quickly as possible, and then record the time taken to complete the task. And then afterwards, we'll reflect and discuss your observations about how UX writing impacted your experience. Learning objectives are that by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to apply concise UX writing techniques to improve the clarity and simplicity of digital interfaces. You'll also be able to craft action-oriented microcopy to guide users effectively through digital experiences and reduce friction. You'll be able to adapt tone and voice in UX writing to build emotional connections and enhance brand consistency, as well as implement inclusive language principles to create UX content that represents diversity and promotes accessibility for all users. We'll also be able to design effective voice user interface (VUI) interactions to enhance user experiences through clear and conversational prompts. So, with an introduction to UX writing, what is UX writing? It is the practice of writing the text that appears in digital products like apps, websites, and software. So some key characteristics are clear, concise, and intuitive language, focus on user needs and tasks, in addition to consistent tone and voice across the product. Some examples of that are entering your email to continue instead of just email, saying let's get started for a welcome message instead of start here. And the goal is to drive conversations, to increase sales, and to boost brand engagement. So, what is copywriting? It aims to persuade users to take specific actions like purchasing, subscribing, like purchasing a product or subscribing to a service or engaging with a brand. Some key characteristics of copywriting are persuasive language, brand voice, emotional appeal. And examples are get 50% off your first month by signing up today. Don't miss out. Get free shipping on orders over $50. Shop now. So it's direct CTAs with call to actions, with incentive as well. So the goal is to drive conversions and to increase sales and to boost brand engagement. And what is technical writing? Technical writing, it explains complex processes, products, or systems in a clear, detailed manner to a specialized audience. It emphasizes precision, accuracy, and formal tone. Some key characteristics of technical writing are structured and organized, it's detailed instructions, objective and formal, and then step-by-step clarity. An example of that is a user manual explaining how to install and configure software. The goal is to educate users on how to use technical products to help users understand technical products. Next, we have comparing UX writing, copywriting, and technical writing. So this table shows the key differences between UX writing, copywriting, and technical writing in terms of aspect. In terms of aspect, it's like purpose, tone, focus, common use cases, and audience. So for UX writing, the purpose is to guide users through a digital experience, while the tone is conversational, concise, and user-friendly. And the focus is usability and task completion. The common use cases are buttons, error messages, and navigation hints, while the audience is users of an interface that is broad and varied. As far as copywriting, the purpose is to persuade and engage users to act. The tone is persuasive, emotional, and brand centered. The focus is marketing, sales, and brand promotion. While the common use cases are ads, product descriptions, and landing pages. And for audiences, they're looking for more so to target potential customers or brand followers. And then technical writing, last but not least, as the purpose of technical writing is to explain complex information clearly, while the tone is formal, detailed, and objective. The focus is instructions, processes, and documentation, while common use cases focus on user manuals, FAQs, and knowledge bases. The audience are specialized users needing detailed information. And then why UX writing is so important. It plays, as we just saw, it plays a crucial role in enhancing usability, improving the user experience, and ensuring that users can easily navigate and understand the interface. It is important because it enhances clarity and simplicity, while it also provides guidance and instruction. In addition to preventing, it also prevents and recovers from errors, reinforces brand voice and tone, and last but not least, it improves overall usability. Some key principles that help us master UX writing by creating clear, concise, and user-friendly content are to use conversational language, keep copies concise to make them impactful, as well as writing descriptive headlines and avoiding overwhelming users with information. Next, we'll get into the role of a UX writer. Role of a UX writer in a design team. A UX writer ensures that content is clear, concise, and user-centered. They collaborate with different teams to create an intuitive user experience. A key focus area is For key focus areas, there are 3 key focus areas to create a seamless and intuitive user experience. They are crafting microcopy, maintaining tone and consistency, as well as enhancing usability and clarity. As far as microcopy and writing best practices, microcopy in UX refers to a short text that guides users during their interaction with a digital product. It includes button labels, error messages, form instructions, and tooltips. Just to zoom in on this login screen here, it says online shopping, login, sign up, and then it has some subscript that's in lorem ipsum for those that can't necessarily see it. And then the microcopies in the image are online shopping, login, and sign up because they are short and clear pieces of text that guide users through actions or provide context within the app interface. And then the importance of microcopy is that microcopy plays a crucial role in creating a seamless and effective user experience. It guides users' actions, enhances usability, reduces errors and frustration, as well as builds trust and engagement. Last but not least, it supports accessibility, which is very important in the world that we live in today. Key elements of effective microcopy is that it must include the following to guide and engage users are clarity, brevity, action-oriented language, consistency, and empathy. So an example of effective microcopy. Here's an example of how effective microcopy can enhance the user experience. So first, if a app says sign up for our newsletter, provide your email address and then submit, versus sign up for our newsletter, provide your email address and then sign up. The image shows how using clear action-oriented microcopy like sign up is more effective and user-friendly than vague text like submit. So another activity is that we're gonna click the image below and just visit Amazon and identify microcopy elements on Amazon. And the reason why I say that is because it's more so like subscript, which can be considered microcopy at times. But if I understand what sponsor usually points to is more, okay, it's pointing to leaving ads. This is an ad required, not relevant. Well, it's telling us that this is an ad and just allowing us to engage with it. So I looked that up, Varesh, and it does say that the sponsored is like small text or ad, and appears above certain product listings, and the purpose is to maintains transparency, and FTC guidelines require disclosure, and it distinguishes ads from organic results, so it does count. Its UX writing angle is that it's neutral and concise, but often styled in smaller, lighter text, balance, and clarity with a nudge towards sponsored products. Some insight there. And then to get back into the lesson, next we're going to go over voice and tone in UX writing. So as far as brand voice, the unique brand voice is described as the unique personality and communication style a brand consistently uses, always across all platforms and interactions. While tone is described as the emotional emphasis applied to the brand's voice based on context, audience, or situation. The tone can change depending on the interaction or mood. Note: a brand's voice may always be friendly and conversational, but its tone might be more empathetic in customer service and more enthusiastic in promotional content. Yeah, for example, what's a good example of this? Service and promotional content. Okay, I guess we can think about Apple, for example. Their voice, their tone of voice, as a brand in terms of when they're wanting to sell you that new iPhone or promote another new product, like for example the AirPods that just came out. There's always a like sense of like clean, clear, you need this, coming from Apple, whereas when in terms of like Apple services and updates, or at least getting your equipment serviced, their tone of voice is, I would say, consistent with their brand. It's clear, it's pretty direct, but at the same time it still has a sense of support. Like, we're here to support you, we're here, let us take care of that for you. Kind of like a we got your back in a way, is their like terms of service, tone of support, which is also still clear, clean, and direct, similar to the like you need this, or you really want this and you should have this, or you deserve this, in terms of their products. Why is voice and tone important? Voice and tone are essential in UX writing because they impact the user experience in the following ways: ensuring consistency across user touchpoints, building emotional connection with users, guiding user behavior, differentiating and differentiating in a competitive market. Some steps to define a brand's voice are to create a consistent and authentic brand voice. Follow these essential steps. Understand the brand's vision and mission. Know the target audience. Identify key personality traits. So, a lot of what we do in our research, time with research, is truly helping us to write a clear and concise and intuitive user journey that goes from understanding our as a business, our stakeholder needs, what the overall brand's mission vision is, and making sure that we understand what that is, knowing the target audience, so that goes down to knowing who your users are, learning their niches, learning more about them, what they like and dislike, and then identifying, using that data to synthesizing that data to identify key personality traits, identifying identifying those user personas that help to guide your user journeys. And then we want to tailor the tone to match the context, adapt tone for different platforms, and then maintain empathy and relevance. And for example, I've been working on a project where the user range is 30 to 90. That's very interesting, a very interesting user range. But it's an organization, and it's a member-based organization where oftentimes things that may be intuitive or clear to a 30-year-old may have to be further explained to someone that is 90 or maybe even a little bit younger than that, having to use the platform. So making sure that we often have to refine and make sure that we're clearly addressing certain steps if we're explaining a process. If we're explaining a simple upload or login, a lot of times I find myself, which even made today's quick check a bit hard to kind of like just say yes, it is A, because it is clean and clear and simple. However, oftentimes I do find myself implementing longer form text in terms of my input fields, um, or in even my descriptions, just a little bit, just to make sure that I'm clearly explaining certain steps, certain interactions that need to take place to move the user along in a certain journey. So making sure that I'm tailoring it to match the context of what we're doing, adapting it for the tone for, of course, the platform that I'm on, and then maintaining that empathy throughout so that 30-year-olds and 90-year-olds can feel like they're using a clean and clear product without having it feel as wonky as the example that we used before, we used earlier. Some insight there. Some steps to define brand voice are to understand the brand's. Did I go back? Okay, sorry about that. And examples of brand voice and tone are, we're going to go through 3 examples today: Slack, MailChimp, and Airbnb. So with Slack, their voice is friendly, approachable, and slightly humorous. It's casual. While the tone is casual for onboarding and general communication, and then calm and supportive during errors or issues. And I would say we all use Slack, especially for this class. Some people may use it in their other forms of in other experience like group chats or for work as well. So, but the next example, MailChimp, we haven't necessarily used in class. So has anyone used MailChimp in the past? No MailChimp users? Oh, wow. I guess I'm the only one. So the voice of MailChimp is fun, empowering, and confident. And just a little bit about MailChimp for those that don't know. MailChimp is a platform that allows you to design and create newsletters and campaigns, email campaigns. The voice is fun, empowering, and confident, while the tone is enthusiastic and encouraging for marketing emails and features, while reassuring when addressing user concerns or technical issues. And then Airbnb, we've gone through some case studies and different examples and different aspects of Airbnb during class, so I feel like we're all pretty familiar with that platform. The voice is welcoming, inclusive, and trustworthy, while the tone is friendly and inspiring for marketing content. It's compassionate when dealing with customer service issues. And then adjusting tone based on content. In UX writing, adapting the tone to the context is crucial for delivering a user-centered experience. The key considerations to adjust the tone are context, when we discuss what is the user doing, emotion, when we talk about how might they feel in this situation, and then last but not least, when we discuss how can tone guide reassurance or celebrate users, it's referred to as the response. Then tone for success messages. Success messages are an opportunity to acknowledge the user's achievement and reinforce positive emotions. This tone should be encouraging, positive, and grateful. And some examples of success messages are like generic. You may say, success payment sent, or success and say what actually happened. Your payment of $50 has been sent, helping them understand what was actually completed. And then the note is that to keep the success message brief, but provide the next steps if relevant. And then for every positive, we also have a negative. So for error messages, the tone is needed is to be handled with care. The goal is to calm the user, provide clear instructions to fix the issue, and avoid placing blame. The tone should be reassuring, empathetic, and helpful. Some examples of error messages are, we have an inappropriate term, whoops, whoop-de-doo, whoops, something went wrong. The third party you're trying to connect to isn't responding, and that's passing the blame. And then so we can fetch, isn't passing the, all right, let's just read it through first, and then I can identify the different parts. The third party you're trying to connect to isn't responding, so we can't fetch your data. Try again later. So the inappropriate term is whoops. That's not necessarily seen or heard in UX writing. So just simply saying something went wrong may be a bit better of approach. And then the third party you're trying to connect to isn't responding, is placing the blame. While so we can't fetch your data is technical jargon. It's not really being specific as to what is going on or what. We can't fetch your data. We can't get your information. We can't pull your name. We can't pull your email. What can't we do? And then try again later is generic. It's not saying when you can try again later. It's just saying try again later. A more positive, a better example of an error message is say what happened is you're unable to connect your account, and then Your changes were saved, but you could not connect. Your changes were saved, but we could not connect your account due to a technical issue on our end. Please try connecting again. If the issue keeps happening, contact customer care. So with the header, we're unable to connect your account. We're saying what happened. We're also providing reassurance by saying your changes were saved, letting the user know like, hey, we have your changes, we have your updates. Then we're saying what happened, but we could not connect your account due to a technical issue on our end. So we're taking ownership, and we're also saying what happened. And then please try connecting again, is that we're helping them fix it. And then we're giving them a way out by saying that if we can't fix it, to contact customer care. The note here is to avoid technical jargon or in-error messages and focus on guiding the user to a solution. Technical jargon can be very frustrating, especially if you're trying to find a solution. It just seems like you don't care about helping me find the solution. It's just more so helping me repeat the cycle that kind of got me here in the first place. So, tone for neutral messages are that neutral messages often serve as status updates or small nudges, so they don't require a strong emotional tone. The tone should be clear, neutral, and direct. And an example, this is a vague tone. The process you initiated has been completed. All tasks associated with it have been executed successfully. A way of making that more clear and a better writing example of a neutral message is that your monthly report generation is complete. You can now review the details in your dashboard. Your monthly report the timing is clear, while you can now review the details in your dashboard is providing the next step. You want to avoid overloading the user with too much information while keeping it concise and to the point. We're going to take a quick break, use the restroom, and come back at 11:20, and then we'll pick back up with the tone for warning messages. So the tone for warning messages are that warning messages are used when users are about to take an action that might have unintended consequences. The tone should be cautious, clear, and helpful. So an example of a warning message is warning, low storage space detected. Consider freeing up space or upgrading your plan. So the portion that says low storage space detected, it lacks urgency. And then consider freeing up your space or upgrading your plan is too many options. I'm going to be concise here. So, warning, less than 10% storage left. That's clear and specific. Free up space now to avoid issues. Urgency is emphasized there. The note is to provide clear options for the user to confirm or cancel the action. The case study for today is MailChimp's successful brand voice and tone. The problem is that MailChimp entered a crowded market. Most competitors use the same formal communication style. Their challenge was that MailChimp needed a friendly, approachable, and relatable voice to stand out. It also aimed to maintain professionalism while staying approachable. The solution was that MailChimp adopted a friendly and humorous tone with simple communication. Its tone shifted depending on the context. With an empathetic voice, MailChimp built an emotional connection with its users. So for the case study with MailChimp, the result was that they had a stronger brand identity, a higher user engagement and loyalty, as well as leadership in the email marketing space. And then being a consistent voice across platforms. Maintaining a consistent voice across platforms is crucial for reinforcing brand identity and building user trust. The key benefits are brand recognition, trust building, and user experience. And this goes from like when you think about companies, even like Amazon, they have different brands within their overall entity and how they keep that voice overall consistent in ways, but with certain variations, of course, for different products. Consistent voice across platforms. So the screenshot below shows that MailChimp consistently maintains its voice and tone across different platforms. You have their website, turns emails into revenue, um, with new customers, win new customers with the number one email marketing and automations platform that recommends ways to get more opens, clicks, and sales. And then on their LinkedIn, they say, stop emailing everyone and start emailing everyone. Stop emailing everyone and start emailing everyone. Take them out of the customer with our personalization tools. The customer, excuse me. That wasn't that clear to me, but hey. If you notice, the voice is fun, empowering, and confident on both platforms. And then next we'll get into accessibility and inclusive language in UX writing. What is inclusive language? Inclusive language avoids biases, stereotypes, and exclusionary terms. It's acknowledging diversity and promoting equality to ensure users feel respected and valued. The key principles are use gender neutral terms, be culturally sensitive, and then apply person first language. Examples of inclusive language um, are in terms of gender neutral terms are to consider terms to consider man or woman, his or hers document, salesman, saleswoman, he, him, his versus she, her, hers, man up, female scientist, male scientist. And alternative terms to use are person or individual. Instead of his or her document, use their document. Salesman, saleswoman, salesperson, sales representative, using they, them, and theirs instead of he, him, and she, and hers, etc. Instead of man up, say be brave. And then instead of identifying female or male scientists, just say scientists. Some for culturally sensitive terms, for terms to reconsider in terms of minority, say underrepresented group. Instead of tribe, say community. Instead of Oriental, say Asian or Asian American. Instead of third world country, say developing country. Instead of saying blind spot, say unnoticed area. And instead of saying crusade, say campaign or mission. And then some examples of language, of inclusive language in person first terms are that instead of saying disabled person, it's person with a disability. Autistic person, person with autism. Mentally ill, person with a mental health condition. An addict, a person with a substance use disorder. A wheelchair bound, as a person who uses a wheelchair. A dwarf, a person of short stature. And then what is accessibility in UX writing? Accessibility in UX writing means crafting content that is easily understood and navigable by all users, including those with disabilities. The key focus areas are visual accessibility, auditory accessibility, and cognitive accessibility. Best practices for accessibility in UX writing are to ensure accessibility. Consider the following guidelines. Use clear headings and structure. Choose accessible fonts and colors. Avoid relying solely on color to convey meaning. Provide text alternatives. And an example of accessibility in UX writing, I'm going to use a platform called BBC. The screenshot shows clear headings, accessible fonts and colors, avoids relying solely on color, and then provides descriptive text alternatives for an effective user experience. And then UX writing for voice-based user interfaces. Voice commands are key to user interfaces, and effective UX writing helps users interact easily with voice-activated systems. Steps to engaging VUI are some steps to writing engaging VUI are understanding user intent, crafting conversational interactions, personalizing responses based on context, provide engaging feedback and acknowledgement, and then handle errors and guide recovery. So with this activity, we're looking at a ride booking interaction via voice assistant. So we're looking to how they apply the 5 steps and to make the interaction more engaging and user-friendly. Just gonna zoom in a little bit more here. So if someone was requesting a quick ride, the voice asked them where they wanted to go, and they told them Central Park. And then they doesn't show that they repeated it, but it says, "Is that correct?" And the user said yes. And they said, "Where are you now?" 123 Main Street. Okay, when do you want to be picked up? Now. And then the voice simply told them that their ride was booked. So it was engaging feedback. Um, it doesn't display the personalized responses, but just judging by the user's response in return as to confirm that yes, they were correct, and that that they were being picked up now by saying thank you, or at least confirming. It does seem like there were some sort of personalized responses based on the context that they were provided. Key takeaways were simplification of text as it improves clarity and helps users quickly understand digital interfaces, creating well-crafted microcopy guides users through interactions and minimizes confusion or hesitation. We also learned that consistent tone and voice build emotional connections and reinforces brand identity. In addition to using inclusive language as it promotes accessibility and respects diversity in UX content. And then last but not least, we learned that clear and conversational prompts and voice user interfaces enhances the overall user experience. And then additional resources are, what does a UX writer actually do? So I'm going to paste this into the chat. We're getting into one of I know I keep saying like, oh, this is my favorite part, but the visual design and the interactive design are like kind of embodies my favorite part. So without further ado, let's get into presentation mode. So to continue learning about visual design, wireframing, prototyping, microinteractions, and interactive design, today we're going to get into information architecture. Does anyone know what information architecture is? Just like have an idea. Learning objectives are that by the end of this lesson, you will be able to recognize information architecture principles, to organize content for improved user navigation and digital interfaces, You'll also be able to implement IA, organization schemes, which is just a short in information architecture, organization schemes to logically categorize content for better accessibility and usability in a website or application. We'll also be able to identify clear navigation systems that enhance the user's ability to efficiently find and interact with content in a digital product. And last but not least, we'll be able to utilize interactive design principles to create engaging and intuitive user interfaces that encourage effective user interactions. So some essentials for information architecture are, let's explain what information architecture is first and foremost. It is the practice of organizing content so that users can easily find what they need. So Kat was on the money with that as far as organizing information, organizing content, getting your foundation, if you will. And it helps create a logical flow of information within a product, improving user navigation and making content accessible. So here in this visual, well, I will say that this one says welcome page. And then you have two areas similar to when we were building that the flowchart during the research portion. We basically had two journeys or two starting, well, I wouldn't say two starting points, one starting point, but two breaking points as to what the user would experience based on what they selected. And on this page is similar. It's saying that you can either create your account or log in, similar to the screens that we've been building in our guided practices. The create your account screen then lends to a bucket of information that you would have to, that the user would have to input, like email, password, and verifying themselves versus logging in where you just simply log in with your credentials. So the significance of information architecture and UX design are that creating an information architecture is imperative in UX UI design. It helps determine how and where the users can find information on a website or an app. Let's look at an example of a poorly organized website like Craigslist. I would say a sense of reflection or comparison. I think we were comparing Craigslist and Zillow as far as their listing styles. So some issues that Craigslist has is that its overwhelming list of links. The homepage shows a long list of categories with no clear order, making it hard for users to navigate the website. It also includes a lack of grouping. Categories like for sale, housing, gigs, and services are jumbled together. And then there's minimal navigation. Users are not guided by drop-down menus or global navigation, which forces them to scroll through text links. And the relationship between user research, personas, and information architecture. User research, personas, and information architecture are essential elements of UX design that connect to create a seamless user-centered experience. The relationship between user research, personas, and information architecture are that user research provides essential insights into who the users are and what they need and how they engage with the product. It also involves collecting qualitative and quantitative data about their behaviors, goals, and pain points. In terms of personas are archetypes presented as a single human character based on the data gathered in research. Each persona shows important traits and goals of a user group. Helping the design team understand users and make better design choices. While information architecture is shaped by user research, insights, and needs identified in personas, ensuring content is organized logically and easy to navigate. It is especially guided by the primary persona, aligning the content structure with the main user's needs and expectations. So similar to the way we designed for Matt Murdock's that travel app, right? we had certain information that we knew about him and certain information that we included to make it more accessible to the character that we created. So we definitely incorporated certain key things, making it more accessible, making sure that the information was organized in a way that the user would understand, as well as easy to navigate for someone who has selective sight. So I think even more about the project that I explained to you guys yesterday about the member-based organization. Um, it's a platform that I work on the design for, and oftentimes we're designing for the member base as a whole, and of course that primary persona. And then we take another step where we start to design for like that secondary and tertiary persona, being that the users on that particular platform range from 30 to 90. Of course, we're not designing everything for in the eyes of a 90-year-old. However, when we reassess and test our product, oftentimes we are able to realize and see that there are more things that we may need to further explain or include for that user group. So just some insight there. And why do we need information architecture? It enhances usability and findability. So information architecture structures content logically and making it easy for users to navigate and locate what they need. It also improves user experience and efficiency. Information architecture reduces confusion by providing clear labels and categories, enabling users to accomplish their goals faster. And some key elements are here are the essential components and principles of information architecture. First, we have starting on the left side, we have user-centered design. Then we have content inventory and audits, organization schemes and structures, navigation systems, testing and iteration, wireframes and prototypes, search systems, and labeling systems. And for user-centered design, UCD, it is in, it is an inter it's an iterative design process that focuses on understanding and incorporating the needs, behaviors, and goals of users through the design and development process. I will say the oftentimes when I see iterative, especially in this context, I do have to double check to make sure it's not saying interactive or another like close I word. So approaches to consider are user research, conduct interviews, surveys, and usability tests to gather insights and user preferences and behaviors. And personas, create user personas to represent different user types and guide design decisions. Last but not least, scenarios, develop scenarios or use cases to understand how users interact with the system. Content inventory and audits. These help these involve analyzing existing content to assess its structure, quality, and relevance for optimization and improvement. Some approaches to consider are that content, as far as content inventory is concerned, is the list all existing content, including pages, documents, and multimedia. Doing a content audit evaluates the quality, relevance, and accuracy of the content to identify gaps and areas for improvement. So, for example, if you happen to be working on a process and you're trying to make sure every step is accounted for, and every step is explained clearly. This is essentially where that would come in at, listing everything out, listing all the steps out, just in plain text, making sure it's easy to understand and easy to digest, and it's intuitive. It's an intuitive process from one step to the next. That way, you're able to identify gaps and areas for improvement before even going into design, which can definitely slow things up once you have to like remove and add things and separate things to just squeeze a step or something relevant in place. Organization schemes and structures. These involve categorizing and arranging content in a logical, user-friendly manner to enhance accessibility and navigation. Some approaches to consider are organization schemes allow us to choose how to categorize content, for example, by topic, task, or user group. Hierarchy, favorite part. Hierarchy is used to create a clear content hierarchy that shows the relationship between different content pieces. So that's where grouping comes into play. A lot of times you may start things off with a header and some body copy. Your subheader may be a little bit smaller than your main header, or a lot smaller than your main header, but emphasized in a different way, maybe bold or italicized. Making sure you're organizing just your text content, grouping certain things, even if you have like for example, if you're designing say you're designing a page that is about a team, a basketball team, and showing the players, you would organize each player's information and photo with themselves, so that it's essentially giving you not only their name, their player information, their stats, but it's grouping that player with the information associated with them, and likewise for the next player. And then taxonomy is to develop a classification system with categories and subcategories to organize content logically. Next, we have navigation systems. These involve designing pathways for users to navigate information efficiently using global, local, and contextual navigation systems. So, approaches to consider in regards to global navigation is to provide access to the top level sections of the site or app through the main menu or navigation bar. And then local navigation offers secondary navigation within a specific section or page. And then contextual navigation includes links within the content that lead to related information. Labeling systems. These involve creating clear content and user-friendly labels for navigation and content to enhance usability. Approaches to consider here are descriptive labels. Use clear and meaningful labels that accurately describe the content or function. Consistency maintains maintain consistent terminology and labeling conventions across the site or app. For example, if you're labeling, say, for example, you have things grouped, and everything that is grouped with say you have things grouped under like blue, red, and green, and everything grouped under blue starts with a B, everything grouped under red starts with an R, everything grouped under G starts with a G. It's kind of applying that same rhyme and reason, making sure that you're using the same naming systems from page to page throughout your content on specific platforms, just so your user is able to follow. And then search systems. These involve designing user-friendly search interfaces, effective algorithms, and filtering options to help users find information quickly and efficiently. Approaches to consider are search interface allows you to design a user-friendly search bar and results page. Search algorithms implement effective search algorithms that return relevant results. And then filters and facets provide filtering and faceted search options to help users narrow down results. And then wireframing and prototypes. Wireframing and prototypes are visual representations that outline the design structure and simulate user experience. So wireframes develop low fidelity wireframes to outline the structure and layout of the content. Next, we have prototypes, which is build high fidelity prototypes. Build high fidelity prototypes to simulate the user experience and test the navigation flow. Testing and iteration. Testing and iteration involves evaluating and refining the information architecture through user testing methods to enhance usability and navigation. Usability testing. Conduct usability tests to observe how users interact with the information architecture. And then we use card sorting exercises to understand how users categorize and label content. An example of that is Spotify is a good example of an effective information architecture. It organizes content intuitively, prioritizing user experience, and adapts based on user feedback. And Spotify is definitely one of those apps that leverages their user feedback, I think, pretty well, without completely disrupting their platform with enhancements. You can tell the app is improving, but it doesn't feel overwhelming to find something new or to engage with some of the new features that they have. Kind of feels intuitive. Like, for example, not too long ago, they included seeing the lyrics on songs, certain songs that may have them uploaded or provided. They made that process not hard to find. It kind of just took over your display screen, and you're like, oh, I can see the lyrics. And oftentimes now I look for if it's a song that I like, I try and look for, like, can I see the lyrics to this? Because I enjoy that experience. Although I know that Apple Music does include the lyrics, I would say pretty standardized, especially if the musician puts it in. Um, However, I feel like I prefer Spotify's platform more, especially in terms of their playlists and how easy it is to find a good playlist or a curated playlist. So just some insight there. So next we're going to get into organization schemes and information architecture. What are organization schemes? Organization schemes are methods used to sort and arrange content, making it easier for users to find and understand information on a website or an application. Types of organization schemes are exact schemes, hybrid schemes, and subjective schemes. And to get into those a bit more granular, exact schemes organize content using clear and objective criteria. They are easy for users to understand. Some categories include alphabetical. It organizes content by title or keyword in an alphabetical order. Chronological arranges content by date or time. And then graphical categorizes content based on location. An example of that is Netflix organizes titles alphabetically in the search bar. It sorts content by release date and new releases and provides it provides region specific content based on geographical location. For example, have you ever traveled and checked out the Netflix in another country and it be like a bit different?
Yeah, I've seen Netflix's where it's a lot better than the one in the United States. That's why people use VPN.
Yeah. And even the like certain content that you may even like from the United States, you can't see it out of the country. But I do agree that the content that Netflix has for other countries is a lot better. Other regions is a lot better. Thankfully, they started to pull some of that content over, but still, it's like before they pull it over, they try and make a new version of it to get us to adapt to it already, like a Americanized version, I would say. Um, but yeah, I think Netflix was a great example of that. And then subjective schemes. Subjective schemes organize content based on user perspective or context. They are more intuitive but can vary with individual preferences. So some categories include topical, organizes content by subject or topic, or metaphorical, uses familiar metaphors to organize content. An example is Google Drive organizes files by topics and folders and uses familiar folders and file structure for easy navigation. And then a hybrid scheme. Hybrid schemes combine exact and subjective methods, offering flexible organization for diverse user needs and content types. Categories include alphabetical and topical. They combine alphabetical lists within topical categories, and then chronological and task oriented. Organize events by date while grouping them by task type. An example is Trello organizes tasks into topical boards and lists them alphabetically. Due dates within each project phase also sort tasks. I've used Trello a lot in the past. Um, it well before using Notion, I would say, because this has a similar structure of just organizing yourself, information projects, um, in a really, I would say, a really niche way. It's a really high level, clear way if you're writing a to do list of what you need to do for the day, or if you're writing a project board to organize your project in terms of steps and processes to make sure you're checking certain things off. It's definitely a good way to leverage that. I just think that Notion um, came in the came into the game and kind of like snatched up a lot of users from Trello, just from that same principle of like being able to organize content, information, organize yourself, your to-do list, um, at a high level. Um, and then to some people, Notion can be overwhelming. So Trello still maybe has retained some of their user base through that. Navigation and information architecture. What is navigation and information architecture? Navigation and information architecture refers to how users move through and interact with a digital product or website. Effective navigation ensures that users can easily find and access the information they need, leading to a better user experience. And then, why do we need navigation and information architecture? Within navigation, with navigation and information architecture, UI UX designers can structure content for easy navigation, enhancing user experience and making interfaces more intuitive. This example shows us Etsy provides simple user-friendly navigation, enabling users to explore categories and filter products easily for a seamless shopping experience. Because Etsy is one of those places where it's like, depending on how your algorithm is kind of set up when you first view the page, it can be a lot to look at because there, especially when you're going to the app for like one specific thing. But if you know what you're searching for, you can simply search in the search bar or select categories from the drop down. And then they have even quick selection things that might interest you, like fashion finds or some home favorites, or even gift cards, which are popular, some of the popular searches, I would say, on Etsy, displaying that to you as at a high level for you to engage with as well. And then next we have types of navigation systems and information architecture. It is essential navigation systems and information architecture that enhance user experience. We're going to start from the left side. We have, or we're going to go around this way. We have interactive navigation, faceted navigation, supplemental navigation, breadcrumb navigation, contextual navigation, local navigation, as well as global navigation. And starting with global navigation, it provides access to main sections of a site application from any page. It appears at the top or side of every page, It contains primary navigation links such as home, about, services, and contact, and it consists of it is consistent across all pages. So, for example, this Walmart's website, the navigation is here, and it's pretty consistent in terms of being stationary on all pages, allowing you to navigate through certain categories at a high level. So Walmart has a consistent top menu bar with links to departments like grocery, home, and electronics present across all pages. And then it appears to it provides access to subsections as far as local navigation. Local navigation provides access to subsections within a specific section of the site. So here we have this side navigation on Walmart. It appears within a specific section of or page, often in a sidebar or a secondary menu. It helps users explore content related to the current section without returning to the global navigation. And then Walmart provides local navigation within specific departments with additional subcategories for exploration. And then next we have contextual navigation. It provides links to related content or actions within the context of the current page. It appears within the body of the page, such as links embedded in text as or a section on related articles at the end of a post. It enhances the user's experience by suggesting relevant content or guiding users to the next steps. Walmart suggests related products or customers also viewed section on product pages, guiding users based on their insights. So, for example, you may see similar items you might like. You can see that on Walmart, on Amazon, quite a few platforms leverage this to get you to essentially buy more things. And then next you have breadcrumb navigation. It shows a user path from the homepage to their current location, showing each step taken within the site structure. Some characteristics there are it displays a trail of links representing the path from the homepage to the current page. It helps users understand their current location and easily navigate back to previous pages. A good example here is that Walmart uses breadcrumb navigation to show users the path they have taken, such as food, snacks, cookies, and chips, and then cookies and Oreos. So showing you right here that breadcrumb aspect, which is very helpful for users to be able to like go back at times and to say they don't want Oreos, say they want a different type of cookie or a different type of snack. They would be able to go back into those like sub niches. Say, oh, they don't want cookies anymore. They want chips, and they can go back into click snacks, cookies, and chips and see the full options that they have. And then next we have supplemental navigation. It provides additional navigation options that support the primary navigation. It includes elements like footer links, utility navigation, for example, login, login, register, help, and search functionality. It also offers links to pages that are less frequently accessed or have secondary features. And here you'll, otherwise known as like a footer area, you'll see a lot of that information there. Walmart's footer includes links to customer service, privacy policy, and sitemap, offering additional navigation options. And in faceted navigation, it helps users filter and refine content based on several attributes, making it easier to find specific items. Some characteristics here are using e-commerce sites and search interfaces. It provides filters for attributes like price, brand, size, color, and customer ratings. And Walmart enables users to filter products by attributes such as brand, price range, customer rating, and more. It provides interactive navigation and provides dynamic interactive ways to navigate content. It includes elements like drop-down menus, mega menus, carousels, and accordions. It enhances user engagement and makes complex navigation systems more manageable. Walmart offers drop-downs, interactive carousels, and hover menus for quick product browsing. And in faceted navigation, it helps users filter and refine content based on several attributes, making it easier to find specific items. Some characteristics include it's used in e-commerce sites and search interfaces, providing filters for attributes like price, brand, size, color, and customer rating. And you'll see that in this like middle section here, as well as on the side with departments, price, and brand. Walmart enables users to filter products by attributes such as brand, price range, customer rating, and more. And then next you have interactive navigation. So it provides dynamic, interactive ways to navigate content. It includes elements like drop-down menus, mega menus, and carousels and accordions. And you see that example here in the middle. It's like a carousel of different categories or different key topics that you can topics and categories that you can search within. For example, this $20 and under. Of course, everyone loves a good deal, so highlighting that too, as well as holiday incentives. It enhances user engagement and makes complex navigation systems more manageable. And Walmart offers drop downs, interactive carousels, and hover menus for quick product browsing. And then I think we have another guided practice that's pretty similar, but this time it's with a ride share. So just to keep us going, we're gonna go over interactive design principles. What are interactive design principles? Interactive design principles guide the creation of effective, engaging, and user-friendly interfaces, ensuring digital products are intuitive, responsive, and seamless. A good example of interactive design principles is Action is YouTube, which offers intuitive navigation, real-time feedback, and a consistent interface and clear visibility of key elements. Some principles of interactive design are feedback, consistency, affordability, and visibility. Affordability, it makes the functions or interactive elements clear. It makes the elements clear. Implementation of affordability looks like design elements to suggest their functionality. For example, buttons should look clickable. Use familiar icons and symbols to convey actions. Ensure that interactive elements are distinguishable from non-interactive elements. So, for example, YouTube's platform is simple and intuitive, allowing users to easily navigate, search for videos, and access content without much effort or prior knowledge. And then next you have visibility. It makes key features and actions easy to find and understand. The implementation looks like use clear and recognizable labels and icons, show users their current location and path within a site, and highlight active elements of navigation. Next, place CTAs and display notifications and alerts in prominent locations. And then last but not least, use clear headings and subheadings that are legible fonts, adequate contrast between text and background, and white space for content. For example, in YouTube, key elements like the search bar, video controls, and recommended videos are always visible. Allow users to easily find what they need and perform actions without confusion. And then last but not least, consistency. It maintains A uniform design to reduce the user's cognitive load. Implementation looks like use consistent visual elements, for example, buttons and icons across the interface, and then maintain consistent behaviors and interactions. Adhere to established design patterns and guidelines. YouTube's interface is consistent across devices, whether on mobile, desktop, or smart TV apps, ensuring users are familiar and how to use it regardless of the platform. And then I thought that was the last one. Feedback. Feedback, it informs users about the outcome of their actions. Implementation in that scenario looks like providing immediate visual or auditory feedback for user actions. Use animation or status indicators to indicate progress or challenges. Display confirmation pages for critical actions such as submissions. YouTube provides instant feedback through loading bars and video buffering indicators and interaction responses like liking, subscribing, and commenting. So I think this is a decent one. I wish I found a better one, but I feel like this one is okay. And they also show that they added more to their lower menu and to embody some of the things that we keep talking about, like home. They have an order button, the offer, which shows you like what deals are nearby, and then they have a like button to show your favorites, and then the profile. So they don't necessarily point out the cart in their lower navigation menu, but in their top navigation menu, that's where they give you the option to see your cart, your payment wallet, as well as your location. So this one is very well organized in terms of their information architecture and what they included. And maybe there's some things that we can leverage from here, especially having a mobile delivery app and I haven't seen a search in the bottom in ages, but I was just kind of like doing it according to like the lesson prompt. But I haven't seen like a search in the bottom in ages, just because it's not as accessible as people think it is. You would either have to hide something or have some sort of like really cool interaction in order for that to display correctly, especially with other things in the bottom, whereas people want to be able to search full out. Like that's the first thing that they're coming to your platform to do, is to search for what they want specifically. So, with that in mind, I think this is a great example of a food delivery app and how they organize their information architecture in terms of their bottom menu, and then leveraging some of those other additional things that we keep talking about in terms of searching where the cart is, and also changing location. So I think that they did a good job here. Some key takeaways for today were that information architecture organizes and structures content, improving user experience by making it easier for users to navigate websites or apps and find what they need. Organization schemes like hierarchical or sequential structures logically categorize content, making it accessible and easy to understand, while navigating systems, including global, local, and contextual, guide users efficiently through a website or app, helping them quickly find relevant information. While interactive design principles such as feedback, affordability, consistency, and visibility enhance usability, making digital products more intuitive and engaging for users. Continues with visual design, wireframing, prototyping, microinteractions, and interactive design. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to identify the purpose and significance of wireframes in UI UX design, understanding their role in structuring user interfaces, You'll also be able to create a basic wireframe for a food delivery app, applying wireframing concepts to strengthen practical design solutions. Excuse me. And then implement advanced wireframing techniques and methodologies by transforming hand-drawn sketches into functional wireframes using AI-based tools. Brief introduction to wireframes. So, what are wireframes? A wireframe is a visual design guide that illustrates the interface elements to be displayed on a web page. So you can see visually here, someone did like an actual sketch. And there's been times back in the day when I used to actually do sometimes I might still like break out my notebook and do a quick sketch, or if you have like one of those notebooks, even that have like dotted lines instead of lines, I tend to prefer those just so I can write and draw with ease. But yeah, by all means, always pen and paper is always a classic method, and you can even upload those sketches into Figma just so you can be able to document your work. And just as you're building your portfolio, it's important to see your before and your after. A lot of times it helps to tell the story of where your product has been or where the product has been before it got into your hands and what improvements you've made. So being able to show your in between and your thought process even more in depth is definitely important for um, recruiters and managers to see. A wireframe is used to complete the user-centered design UCD process. Wireframe pages are tested for user feedback before the creative phase. Wireframes are typically created using software like Balsamic or Figma, uh, though they can be hand-drawn. The image illustrates a wireframe of Wikipedia. Yeah, everyone for the most part knows what Wikipedia is. And for those of you that don't, Wikipedia is basically one of the, I would say, first few websites of finding information, additional information or resources as to what something may be. As long as it was populated by something else, you may be able to find the information. However, it served as like an online encyclopedia, given its name, Wikipedia. The controversy or the trust value in Wikipedia, while it is decent, it's not as high as other platforms or search engines because anyone can essentially, unless they changed it, I'm not sure what they've done over the years, but in the past, anyone would be able to go into Wikipedia and basically write content. And it wasn't necessarily always coming from a trusted source. So having to check your Wikipedia sources is a thing. And a lot of times I remember being in school and my professors and teachers, my instructors would always tell us to all of our sources could not be Wikipedia if we were citing something. So, just a little fun fact there for those of you that may not be familiar or maybe a bit younger than myself that may not remember or not use Wikipedia as a primary resource. We often did back in the day. So, all right. Sorry, my kid is a snorer. So I guess he's trying to get into his like deep sleep. I don't know. Um, Wireframe examples. These wireframes show the basic layout of an app, including buttons, menus, and content blocks. They give a clear picture of how the interface is planned before the detailed design begins. Um, Here you can see like someone potentially taking a wireframe of a website and then condensing that from what it looks like to me. They may be condensing that information into an app and trying to plan out how it looks and feels. Of course, getting into the login password screen, and if you don't want to log in, you can log in with Facebook or register. What the registration screen looks like. I can't really read this last one. Oh, it says thank you for registering. A message has been sent to your email to complete registration. So just a simple way that you could plan out a simple sign up flow or registration flow rather. And some key elements of wireframes are that wireframes provide a clear overview of page structure, layout, architecture, user flow, functionality, intended behaviors, and design. So let's start with page structure. Page structure defines the basic organization of the page's key elements. For example, a news site with a header, a news site with a header, article area, sidebar for news, and a footer with contact info. And then the next layout is described as maps out the placement of text, images, buttons, and other elements. For example, a product page features images on the left and details with an add to cart button on the right. Architecture shows how the pages are connected in the navigation. For example, a university site links the homepage to sections such as admissions and academics. And then user flow visualizes the steps users take to move through the site or app. For example, in a food delivery app, users choose a restaurant, add items to the cart, and check out. And as regarding functionality, it outlines interactive features like forms, buttons, and menus. For example, a banking app includes a login form and a drop down menu for account types. The intended behavior behind this is that it illustrates how elements will behave, such as pop ups or scrolling. An example is a travel site features a pop up for special offers and a shrinking header during scrolling. And then, as far as design provides a framework for the final design. It focuses on structure over visuals. An example there is a fitness app wireframe features a navigation bar, a workout space, and a footer for social links. Wireframing usually takes place during the exploratory phase of the product. First, we start with discovery and research, and then we get into that exploratory phase. So, in a natural progression of like where we've been with our course, even we finished doing research, doing all our user journeys and persona mapping and empathy mapping. And now we're in the exploratory phase where we're taking that syndicated insight and we're helping to define we're using it to help define the business needs as well as the potential scope that we need to design for. That's aligning the product with the user expectations. Um, and then next we get into, of course, wireframing, which is a bit more, adds a bit more meat and potatoes, meat and potatoes to our exploratory phase. The initial iteration fosters collaboration, it gathers feedback, and ensures approval, clarifying the product structure before a detailed design. And this is, of course, most ideal in a Scrum environment where you have time to constantly, where you have more time to be intentional about every phase of design, from, of course, discovery and research all the way through to testing and launch. But you also have that time more so to go back and iterate and reiterate based on your findings. So, some key outcomes of wireframing are the key design principles in wireframe design ensure seamless structure, navigation, and functionality. First, we want to start with having a consistent user interface. That could be through shapes, colors, fonts, making sure that your UI is consistent. And then space and location, the spacing that you have and where you're placing certain elements, the spacing in between them. Of course, as we mentioned earlier in this lesson, things that are grouped together or colors associated together, um, things that are grouped together and or sometimes colored the same can be associated with each other. And then, of course, visual representation, making sure that, for example, if you have like a certain breadcrumb that is carried throughout your app, or making sure that important elements are visually represented on your in your design. Some essential guidelines for wireframing are to use gray and black. It differentiates items without relying on color. And a good way to also kind of keep your stakeholders focused in a way. A lot of times they don't want to see, especially when something is new to them or they're trying to understand the concept behind something. You don't necessarily, and this can go for an existing brand that has colors established already or one that doesn't. But a lot of times you want to essentially separate out your elements, especially when you're working on screens. The reason why it's in black and white or gray and black, if you will, is to not be distracting, to be able to clearly have your stakeholders and collaborators focus on the content at hand, or whatever the story is that you're trying to tell, at least at a low level, to make sure they're able to grasp it and follow along. And then, of course, use one generic font to maintain consistency by resizing a single font to indicate hierarchy. Use X to represent images. Mark image placeholders with a box and X for size and location. And then use a play button to represent videos. Draw a triangle with a play button icon in the center. Draw a rectangle with a play button icon in the center. And use rounded angles for buttons. Label buttons with a text line, button, or CTA to show functionality. And then use bold lines for headlines. Mark headline text with a thicker line at the top of the text area for emphasis. And use thin lines for body text. Draw multiple thin lines stacked below the headline to indicate paragraph text. And key steps for effective wireframe design. The wireframe structure is adaptable to user needs and project requirements. It identifies the website goal, understands users' flow, determines wireframe size, determines conversion points, where you start the wireframe design, and then removing redundant steps, and then getting feedback. To continue the key steps and to further give some rhyme and reason behind them. When you identify the goal, you're defining the main objective to align with business and user goals. An example there is the coffee shop website aims to let users browse the menu and order coffee for pickup. To understand users' flow, you want to map the user's journey to ensure smooth navigation and interaction. An example there is a user visits the homepage, clicks menu, selects a coffee, and places an order. And then next, you want to determine wireframe size. Set dimensions based on target devices for responsive design. An example there is the wireframe should be designed to work well on mobile devices, tablets, and desktops. And then to determine conversion points, set dimensions based on target devices for a responsive design. An example there is the Order Now button is the key action and should be prominently placed on the homepage and menu pages to encourage quick user action. Next, you want to start with the wireframe design. Sketch the basic layout and key elements like headers, navigation, and content areas. For an example there is to sketch out the homepage with a simple layout. And of course header with the logo and the navigation. The main content area should include the showing the coffee menu. For example, if anyone's familiar with Starbucks, like that main bulk of where you're able to scroll through different coffee menu items or breakfast items, and a prominent order now button. Next, as far as remove redundant steps, we want to simplify the user journey by eliminating unnecessary steps. A good example there is that if users need to navigate through too many pages to order coffee, they can streamline the process by putting the menu on the homepage and adding an order button next to each item. And then in terms of getting feedback, it's okay, Pa. In terms of getting feedback, we want to be able to collect input from stakeholders and users to refine the improvement, to refine and improve the wireframe. Some examples there include sharing the wireframe with stakeholders and potential users to gather feedback on the layout. I was just going over wireframe fidelity and tools. And then just to reiterate, what is wireframe fidelity? Wireframe fidelity refers to the level of detail in a wireframe from basic sketches to detailed mockups. And you're taking your design from a low fidelity, which is those basic wireframes and sketches, to medium fidelity, which is kind of enhancing, improving on that flow, and then high fidelity, which is like a full design. Levels of fidelity, starting with low fidelity. It is the basic outline of a screen or web page showing the placement of buttons, text, and interactive elements. It can be done on paper, which is known as a paper sketch. So don't feel afraid to break out your pen and paper. And I also recommend I often tell people about this app. If there's a better one, by all means, let me know. But when it comes down to, like, if I do draw something out and I want to scan it into, make it an image and place into my file, I'll take a photo of my sketch and on Cam Scanner. If anyone is familiar with that app. And I pretty much use this app for a lot of things, just to scan documents, to scan my sketches, to scan pretty much anything that is at a grasp that I may need to upload into the computer or to my laptop. So it's very helpful, especially if you happen to like to sketch a lot, even wanting to get your sketches into like a digital format and have that still sketch look, without like just taking a photo. Yeah, you can take a photo by all means, but it kind of just acts like as if you were to put this on a photocopy scanner, and it had that digital process as well. So levels, to continue with levels of fidelity and wireframes, we're going to go into medium fidelity. And here's where you start to see a little bit more emphasis. You see some digital design. It provides a detailed layout focusing on structure and key elements like buttons, forms, and navigation. It helps assess user flow and design decisions in detail. It helps assess user flow and design decisions in detail without focusing on final aesthetics. And this is a good stage, like I was saying, to show your stakeholders or your dev team to kind of make sure, like, hey, am I going in the right direction here, right? Before you start worrying about like colors and typography that could distract even your internal audience from what you're trying to communicate. I will also just emphasize, just different from this particular screen. I would suggest to round just a little bit, even if you don't have like a pill-shaped button, just a little bit round your buttons just so they're clear that they're buttons and not like a CTA or the login. The login is actually the button. The CTA and logo aren't, but I think they could be seemingly confusing if you don't round those corners at least a little bit. Like I'm talking like a 4-point round, an 8-point round, nothing too crazy or pillish looking, unless that is a part of your intended design and you just want to go for it early. But by all means, just round your corners on your buttons a little bit just so it's clear when you're separating your CTAs and logos. And then next we're going to get into high fidelity. So on this level, it provides a pixel perfect layout, including actual content, images, and detailed UI elements. So we see a lot more here. And excuse me, I thought the CTA above was not a button, and turns out it is actually the button. And then the login is put into a secondary or tertiary button. I think they did a good job of following their low, CTA and then action. They did a good job of following their low, medium to high fidelity, and it was a natural progression for this particular screen. It is ideal for exploring and documenting complex concepts such as interactive maps or menu systems. And there's some elements of fidelity in wireframes. For example, low and medium fidelity focus on like icons or logos, search fields, headers, share buttons, placeholder text, and content, while high fidelity focuses on the navigation system, contact information, footers, typography, imagery, and partial colors. And next we have wireframing tools. Um, Wireframing tools help designers create the blueprint of a digital products interface. And you can use Figma, Sketch, or Adobe XD to create these wireframing tools. So Figma is a powerful web-based design tool that supports real-time collaboration. It uses vector graphics to ensure the designs look sharp and can be easily resized. It also creates clickable modals of the designs without additional tools. And then it also supports live collaboration, enabling team members to design and give feedback in real time. And last but not least, it ensures designs fit various screen sizes automatically. For the Sketch is a leading a Mac OS tool, which is an intuitive interface and powerful vector-based design features. It creates designs that can be resized for different screens without losing quality, and it provides tools for animations and automates tasks with add-ons. You can also save and reuse design elements to maintain consistency. And then last but not least, it creates prototypes and adds basic animations to show how users will interact with them. And the next, Adobe XD is a vector-based UI UX design and prototyping tool developed by Adobe. It works seamlessly with other Adobe tools to share design elements. It also creates prototypes that respond to voice commands and automatically generate smooth transitions between screens. It keeps designs uniform across different screens and projects. And then last but not least, it allows multiple designers to work together on the same project simultaneously. So now we're going to get into AI and wireframing. Generative AI tools for wireframing. Generative AI tools are transforming wireframing by automating tasks, making the process faster and more efficient. So first we have Wireframe Pro by Mockflow, Sketch to Code by Microsoft, Whimsical, UI Zard with, I don't know how to pronounce that one, Uzard, like wizard, but UI and Zard. And then Visily, which is like visibility but silly at the same time, busily. So for Wireframe Pro by Mockflow, Wireframe Pro is a part of the Mockflow suite. It uses an AI assistant to suggest component placement and layout, speeding up wireframe creation. AI-powered components and templates. It creates AI-powered components and templates. It's real-time collaboration, and it also includes interactive wireframe generation. So essentially, fast-tracking all of what we just did. And there's another one I don't think is included here, but I'll suggest in a second. Sketch to Code by Microsoft is an AI-powered tool by Microsoft that converts hand-drawn designs into functional HTML prototypes. Some key components there are image to HTML conversion, integration with development tools, and then visual editor. And then next you have converting screenshots to wireframes using Sketch to Code. This is a lot of times if you happen to have a whiteboard in your office or in your room, and you're able to whiteboard some things out. Sometimes these are your sketches. Instead of pen and paper, you're on a whiteboard. Similar rhyme and reason in practice, but you're taking a screenshot of your sketch, and then it'll transform your screenshot into a wireframe. So that's pretty cool. And then you have Whimsical, which is a wireframing and diagramming tool that incorporates smart suggestions and auto layout features. The auto layout, so first, one of the components is auto layout. Then they also have smart element suggestions, and then real-time collaboration. UIZard is an AI-powered design tool that quickly turns sketches and screenshots into editable wireframes and prototypes. And then UIZard is an AI-powered design tool that quickly turns sketches and screenshots into editable wireframes and prototypes, thus making design accessible to everyone. Some key elements there are automatic conversion of screenshots. And then you have editable components and layouts. And last but not least, seamless integration. And as far as converting screenshots to wireframes using UIZard, this is a quick example. Say you have a screenshot here on the left side, a quick sketch that you made. Their process is turning that into a seemingly like high fidelity mockup. So I think these are pretty good tools to use. Another one, I want to say, just let me confirm the name. Hold on, let me do it on my phone. I think it's called Reloom. Yeah, it's called Reloom. So just to pull that up really quick. I've used Reloom a few times, but basically it's a similar process where you are you can import, like, say, for example, say you have a design brief that was delivered to you from, sorry, I just wanted to open this to see what it was. Say you have a design brief or documents that were provided to you from your stakeholders, just kind of giving you a lay of the land of what they expect and what they're trying to solve for. You can input that information into Reloom, and it will generate not only sitemaps for you, but it'll also allow the generation of wireframes to be done. And these wireframes are like about mid-level, I would say, not necessarily this low-level designs, but it's a lot more mid-level. And I believe you can. I haven't tried to do any high fidelity designs in Reloom, but you can also export what you do on this particular platform. You can export that directly into your Figma. So that's a cool feature there. And then next we have Visily, which is an advanced design platform that uses AI to simplify creating wireframes and prototypes from rough sketches or images. Some components there are automatic image conversion, collaboration tools, and AI-powered design suggestions. And a good way to convert your screenshots to wireframes using Visibly is that on the left you have a screenshot of a wireframe that someone sketched out, pen and paper style, and then they brought into Visibly and they were able to transform that immediately into a high fidelity mockup. Some advanced wireframing techniques enhance basic wireframes with interactivity, detailed visuals, and iterative feedback. They provide deeper insights into user interactions and layout complexities, bridging the gap between concepts and the final product. Here's an example of converting a screenshot into a wireframe using Visibly. So converting screenshots to wireframes using Visibly did I go back? I did, my bad. Advanced wireframing techniques. So first we have interactive prototyping, which involves creating wireframes with clickable elements, transitions, and animations to mimic the actual user experience. It helps stakeholders and developers understand the intended user experience and flow. And some tools for this are Figma, Adobe XD, and Exure RP. And then you have responsive wireframing, which ensures the design adapts to various screen sizes and devices like desktops, tablets, and smartphones. Sorry, my dog is like playing with his toy, but so the responsive wireframing, it also it ensures the design adapts to various screen sizes and devices like desktops, tablets, and smartphones, but it also improves usability and accessibility, ensuring a seamless experience across different devices and platforms. Some tools for that include Sketch with responsive layout plugins, and then Exure RP. For component-based design, it is the practice of using reusable UI elements and design systems for consistent, scalable designs. It enhances efficiency and ensures consistency across the entire project. For example, I've worked on component-based design when I was at Wish, and essentially it was a whole system built out that we got to play with, similar to what you could do with the Figma stuff. Similar to what you could do with the hey, leave that alone. Similar to what you could do with the Figma design systems or other elements that are in Figma, and similar to what Alexandra posted earlier. You can essentially take those elements and utilize them as your like UI library, especially while you're still learning and figuring things out, to create some of those lo-fi and mid-fi versions. For user flows and journey mapping, it involves visualizing how users navigate through a product and interact with various elements. It also provides a comprehensive view of the user experience, highlighting potential pain points and areas for improvement. And then last but not least, the tools include Whimsical and Figma, which they both require a user flow plugins. I'm not sure about Whimsical, but I know Figma requires user flow plugins to use that. And then next you have collaboration and real-time editing, which allows multiple team members to work on the same wireframe simultaneously, and improves communication and reduces feedback loops, speeding up iterations and decision making. Some tools that's used best for that are, he likes to like eat his toys and then like chew on the fluff. I don't understand that. But some tools are Figma and Adobe XD with co-editing. Usability testing integration. It involves integrating feedback mechanisms directly into the wireframing process, and also validates design decisions frequently and enhancing the final product usability. And then some tools for that are Maze, Look Back, and User Testing. Before we get out of here, some key takeaways for today were that wireframes improve communication by visually organizing structure, user flow, and functionality for alignment before detailed design. Wireframes vary in fidelity from low, medium to high, offering different levels of detail for each design stage. And then AI-driven tools speed up wireframing, automating layout and component placement for faster design refinement.
And with that, we have come to the end of our course. If you have any doubts or questions, ask them in the comment section below. Our team of experts will reply to you as soon as possible. Thank you and keep learning with Simplilearn.